My fusion system. Fusing 1,000 chickens at the start. Chapters 428 to 434. Chapter 428. The Child of God and the Chosen One. Is the ice demoness Nia so strong? I feel that Augustus is even stronger than a day ago. How could he lose when he had already mastered the power of the void? That is too surprising. Facing such a powerful Augustus, Nia only waved her hand to freeze him. If it weren't for her overwhelming strength, she would not have been able to do that. Even Watson barely won against Augustus and almost lost. Doesn't that mean that Nia is even stronger than Watson? Many of the audience were shocked. Augustus? Newman looked at his son with a worried expression. See, I told you not to fuse more holy relics with Augustus. What's the use of giving those holy relics to him? If we use them for research, those holy relics might allow us to discover new technologies. But if we give them to Augustus, he will only be defeated and make a fool of himself. I say that the puppet project itself is not very valuable, McGee shouted from the side. After a few words, Armand stopped him. That's enough. After Augustus fused with more holy relics, his strength is even stronger than the last time. I did not do anything at all. That proves that the fusion between holy relics is beyond anything we've ever seen. Even if we don't do anything, they will still fuse. Just that discovery alone is enough. Furthermore, Augustus failed not because the idea of fusing with holy relics was not good, but because the enemies he faced each time were too powerful. Armand stared at Nia, who was sitting on the icy throne, with a frown. After the fusion he tested Augustus' spatial power. It could fold up to 1,000 layers of space. Those spaces could not only fold but also expand. Each expanded space was the size of a world, and it was equivalent to 1,000 worlds protecting Augustus. A normal attack would be impressive even if it could pierce through 1 or 2 worlds, let alone 1,000. How could Nia's attack penetrate through layers of space to get to Augustus? It was clearly just an ordinary ice element spell. How could it be so powerful? Armand did not know what principles it contained. Even though he did not know, Armand knew that Nia's attack was not simple. Why is Watson trapped? First Augustus and then Nia. Are those two that strong? Kiana, who was sitting in front of the audience, nervously crossed her hands. When she saw that Watson was frozen in the shape of a folded eggshell, she was very worried. Flame Consul Augustus and Ice Demoness Nia. Those two were originally the strongest geniuses in the capital. I thought Augustus would be a little stronger. After the holy relics transformed his entire body, Augustus was on a different level from other geniuses. I did not expect that he would still be no match for Nia, the first prince muttered to himself. The other two princes had complicated expressions on their faces. I did not expect that there would be other monsters in the kingdom besides Watson. Those monsters were right in front of us, but we could not tell. Our ability to judge people is still far inferior to Father's. I thought Watson would definitely win this competition. Now that Nia has displayed such powerful strength, it's hard to say. At first, it doesn't matter who becomes the winner. But now, my sister's heart is with Watson. It's meaningless if Watson doesn't win. I hope he has a way to break out of the sealed state and defeat Nia. The princes were a little worried for their sister, Kiana, because they could feel that Kiana was 100 times more anxious than them. From Kiana's slightly trembling arms and legs, she seemed impatient to rush onto the stage. Only Watson could get her to act that way. Just as all the princes were thinking that, Kiana exhaled a breath of hot air and crossed her legs. First she sealed a person on an indestructible eggshell, and then she covered the eggshell with a layer of ice. Augustus and Nia certainly know a lot. Especially Nia. Previously, they thought that she was cold and unlikable, but it seems like she is quite skilled in torture. If I had known earlier, I would have taken the initiative to approach her. Perhaps we could have become very good friends. It was over. Kiana had fallen ill again. The princes were speechless. They had initially thought that Kiana's restlessness was because of Watson, but in the end, they discovered that Kiana did not want Watson to escape but wanted to take his place. In King Landhar III's private viewing room in the sky. As expected, after the Winter Nation people had left, the viewing quality of the competition had changed. The 16 geniuses are worthy of praise, indeed. Although I was upset that Augustus did not wait for me to finish my words before taking action, I can tolerate competent people. In addition, he had already been frozen and received the punishment he deserved, so I won't mind it. King Landhar III swirled his wineglass. I don't know if Watson can defeat Nia and break through in the final battle that I arranged for him. If he can't do it, I will be greatly disappointed. King Landhar III had anticipated every battle in that exhibition match, including the outcome of the fight and the reactions it would cause. If anything exceeded his expectations, it would be that Augustus had been modified without his permission. He had even fused with dozens of holy relics, but that would not affect that battle. That Nia girl, I remember she's from the Saint Laurent family. She has such powerful strength. The cold air that emanates from her body is too powerful. Even though I am watching from such a distance, I still feel as if the blood in my body and even my soul are about to freeze. Antonio was sitting near King Landhar III. He was also curious about the strength that Nia had displayed. That power seems to be Starlight tier, but that young girl appears to be peak gold tier. That is really illogical. Reed frowned. After all, even Watson could not make a peak gold tier elite unleash the Starlight tier power. At most, Watson could only make a peak gold tier person unleash a diamond tier move. Antonio, Reed, are you guys wondering why an ordinary looking girl would have such terrifying power? King Landhar III asked with interest. He paused for a moment and waited for Antonio and Reed to become impatient. Then he said, I wonder if you have heard of an existence called the Child of God? The Child of God? Antonio and Reed's expressions changed when they heard that word. They knew what it was. The Child of God? Then, even Watson might not be able to win. That is his trial. Don't forget about the conditions that I set for him. If he can't win first place, I will punish him on the spot and kill him. That is not a joke. Quote, King Landhar III's voice reverberated in the room, filled with cruelty. In the Saint Laurent family's seats. The Saint Laurent family had many women in their group, and they preferred to wear long skirts made of purple irises. They wore black veils to cover their faces, and they also wore black gloves on their hands. At that moment, an old woman sat in front of the group. Her white hair indicated her age, and she looked to be over 80 years old. However, her face was reddish, and there were no wrinkles. At that moment, the elderly woman was looking at Nia on the stage with a kind gaze. The Child of God refers to the position when the gods were dissatisfied after reaching the Starlight tier. However, because of the limitations of their talent, they could no longer improve. Therefore, they chose to reincarnate into the body of a low-tier creature. They can start cultivating from the beginning to reach a higher level. A god who can reincarnate not only needs a powerful tool to avoid the limitations of the rules, but also has enough power to tear the passage between the divine and the mortal realms apart. That requires the god to be at the peak Starlight tier. And a god who comes to the mortal world through that method will trigger the memories of their previous life bit by bit, awakening the divine power that does not belong to a mortal, even though that process will gradually erase the human's mind. Nia was a child of God, and the god who possessed Nia was a goddess with the same name who symbolized ice and cold. The god was not satisfied with her power, so she sealed her power in a certain artifact. She entered the body of a newborn baby girl in the Saint Laurent family and fused with her. Although Nia was only 14 years old, the divine power in her body had already awakened quite a bit. That was also why the family head pardoned Nia after accidentally killing someone in the Saint Laurent family. The lives of a few mortals could not compare to the benefits that a child of God could bring to the family when she grew up. To the gods, humans are no different than other living creatures. We are just ants. They think they can kill a few ants as they walk, but they crush a few ants out of curiosity. That is very normal for the gods, just like how humans don't care about how many ants we kill. I'm not sure about other kingdoms, but at least in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, no genius can surpass Nia. These so-called geniuses are just mortals and ants. How can they be compared to gods? The old woman sighed and shifted her gaze from Nia to Watson, sealed in the ice. That child is destined to be no match for Nia. Nia has become a stone on the path of the gods again. However, that child's appearance looks very similar to a certain person in my memories. Am I overthinking? While everyone was in their own thoughts, suddenly, a crisp cracking sound came from the center of the arena. The frozen layer of ice that sealed Watson suddenly shattered. Watson crawled out from within and shook off the ice shards that were on his body. As expected, Nia, you are a mighty opponent. Charlotte had always told me to be careful of you. She was right. However, why did you freeze Charlotte, who is also a member of your family? Watson looked around. The reason he could come out was that Augustus had been frozen. The layers of the world that had sealed him in immediately lost their support, causing him to be able to use infinite time to accelerate the decay of the world and get out. Otherwise, he would be trapped for a while. Watson realized that other than himself, everyone else on the scene had been frozen, including Lily, Charlotte, and Christina. After all, Augustus was someone with ambition. However, he could not understand why Charlotte, Nia's sister, had also been attacked. Because that is the rule. When there's only one person left, I will thaw them out. Nia was still sitting on the frozen throne, tilting her head slightly. Or did I do something bad? I don't quite understand. I was just worried that Charlotte would get in my way, so I sealed her. That way, not only would it ensure the smooth progress of what I'm doing, it would also keep her safe. For a human sister, that should be enough. Human sister? Does that mean you're not a human? Sort of. Taking a deep breath, Watson spat out a ball of ice mist. No matter what you are, I don't intend to admit defeat just like that. Time reversal, activate. Following his voice, Watson reached out his hand and held onto time. The time around him receded rapidly, and soon, the ice cubes on everyone's bodies began to melt. It was as if time had arrived before the start of the battle. What happened? I remember that Brother Augustus attacked everyone first, and then Sister Nia froze us. Lily's shoulders trembled as she slowly opened her eyes. The memories from earlier flashed through her mind, making her feel terrified. Sister Nia, Charlotte recalled what had happened, and her expression became conflicted. Since everyone has recovered, then leave this place quickly. Next, this battle is between Nia and me, and it will become very dangerous. Watson waved his hand. Although everyone was unwilling to accept his words, they knew that their lives were still important. They immediately began to retreat. Only one person did not retreat. Instead, he charged toward Nia. That person was Augustus. Despicable woman. I was ambushed because my attention was on Watson. This time, it won't happen. Activating all holy relics at full power. Peak Starlight Tier ability, 1,000 layers of space shattering. Die. With an angry roar, Augustus put his hands together, and his entire body started to burn. Just like the last time he fought with Watson, he burned his life, and his terrifying power that surpassed ordinary Starlight Tier spread forward. 1,000 layers of space overlapped in the original world, covering Nia. The tremendous power of the 1,000 layers of space destruction caused the audience on Augustus' side to lose their connection with the entire arena. They flew out abruptly, leaving a deep ravine on the ground. They only stopped after knocking down a wall of the Royal Academy. The audience in that part of the area cried out incessantly, their faces filled with terror. That was under the circumstances where Reed and Antonio had worked together to cast a protective barrier. Otherwise, the aftershock from Augustus' attack would have caused tens of thousands of people to disappear. The aftershock was too powerful, even for Nia, who was at the center. However, what was surprising was that Nia only blew a breath toward Augustus' powerful attack. He maintained his posture and froze on the spot. The 1,000 layers of ice were like huge icebergs. However, those icebergs were in the air and looked very spectacular. Is that for real? A wave of exclamations came from the audience seats. They could feel the terrifying pressure even if they were far away. However, Nia could still deflect it easily. That was too strong. Watson could not help but feel shocked by Nia's strength. Even if he wanted to withstand Augustus' attack, it would not have been so easy. It was clear that Nia's strength was above his own. Even a true god was not comparable to her. After thinking for a while, Watson took the opportunity to go to Augustus' side. He cast time reversal and rescued Augustus from the ice seal. DMN that B *TCH. Augustus, who had thawed, did not continue with his attack. Clearly, he also understood that there was a huge difference between him and Nia. Watson, that annoying woman is too strong. I can't defeat her alone. Let's work together, and after we defeat her, we will decide the victor. Quote, Augustus, your suggestion is not bad, but you should rest. Fusion system, activate. Watson extended his right hand toward Augustus. Instead of supporting him, he activated the fusion system. The dozens of holy relics on Augustus' body fused in a burst of light, causing Augustus to become an empty skeleton once again. The reason he did that was that there was no team battle in the third round. Augustus would not be allowed to join forces with him to deal with Nia. Furthermore, Augustus was too hot-tempered. He would charge forward at the slightest disagreement, and that would disrupt Watson's formation. It was better to get Augustus off the field. Lily, I'll leave Augustus to you. You guys should leave quickly. I got it, Watson. Lily nodded hurriedly and carried Augustus, who had turned into a metal rod, and ran out. There were other contestants with them. Seeing that Augustus had been frozen many times, they understood that that was no longer a battle they could participate in. At that moment, following the evacuation of many contestants, many spectators stood up nervously, and the Campbell family was the most apprehensive. DMN that Watson. How can he still take the holy relics on Augustus's body when Augustus is using more than 1,000 layers of space to protect himself? What are the conditions to activate that ability? Does it require the energy to touch the enemy? But if it doesn't require any energy, then what is Watson using? The Campbell family's patriarch, Armand, was about to vomit blood. He had planned to turn Augustus into a puppet once again and find Watson to avenge himself. He did not expect that he would not be able to take revenge. Instead, it was the Campbell family who suffered even more losses. At that time, the Campbell family had fused all of their holy relics on Augustus. They had none left. Therefore, the holy relics were even more powerful when fused. Congratulations on successfully fusing a large number of holy relics, Master. You have obtained a Peak Starlight Tier Peak Tool, the God of Space's Limitless Compass. Peak Starlight Tier Tool. The God of Space's Limitless Compass. This item's soul is bound. It can't be dropped or stolen. Effects. Absolute distance. Regardless of whether it is an attack or an item on the body, it can be transported to any place at any time, regardless of distance. Absolute mark. Using space to mark an item. The mark will not disappear, and the item can be recalled without external resistance. Space manipulation. It can fold multiple spaces into one, or it can turn one space into multiple. Space flashback. Fusing space into the body, allowing the damage to be transferred, and space destruction, allowing space to explode, destroying everything within. Additional abilities. Hidden Void. Opens the door to a random dimension, connecting to an abyssal world, the depths of the sea, or ancient ruins, releasing random creatures. Parallel world. Creates a world similar to the current world, replicating its existence against enemies, replicating the combat power of the world with its own strength. Following the system notification, a strange compass appeared before Watson that looked square on the surface but triangular and circular in other places. The scale on the compass pointed to the top of the compass no matter which direction one looked from. After the semi-transparent compass appeared, the volume of the wheel of reversal behind Watson immediately doubled and floated to Watson's right, while the compass flashed and came to Watson's left shoulder. Two weapons were Peak Starlight Tier weapons, one controlling time and the other controlling space. It made Watson look like a god who controlled time and space. An aura that surpassed ordinary Starlight Tier emanated from his body. Nia, who was facing that aura, was still unmoved. Instead, she said calmly, "It seems like you don't intend to admit defeat. You're the only one on the field now. That means that as long as I defeat you, I can obtain the final victory. If you can do it, feel free to give it a try." Watson gestured to Nia with his finger. She did not stand on ceremony. With a wave of her hand, a cold wave that filled the skies swept in Watson's direction. As the cold wave came, Watson suddenly felt the shadow of death. He understood why Augustus had released such a powerful force and was still frozen. The cold wave that attacked him was not real cold but a strange rule. The effect of that rule was to reduce the operation of the energy factors, making the collision of all the energy factors return to calmness. It was the result of the impact of countless energy factors. That result was not only reflected in the explosion. Even if it was a stone or a blade of grass or a person who did not move, it was formed by energy factors gathered from various forces. If those energy factors did not move, then the form they displayed would be frozen. Therefore, when she faced Augustus' attack, Nia did not freeze his attack. She just stopped the energy factors contained in his attack. The energy factors that stopped moving then froze on the spot. Unfortunately, Watson was not Augustus. The divine artifact he controlled was also more powerful than Augustus' random holy relics. As a result, Watson used a layer of space to wrap the rules that stopped the energy particles. He also used time freeze to harden the entire space. After it was penetrated by the power of the paused energy particles, he used another layer of space that had been frozen to wrap it up. In that cycle, he had sealed Nia's power to prevent it from leaking out. The resulting phenomenon was that the cold wave that Nia summoned went back to Watson's side, then spread and went back again. It was very magical. It's not only the human body, even space and time contain energy particles. It is precisely because of the diversity of energy that world can produce space, time, and many elements. However, that ability can affect the energy elements themselves. I wonder what that ability is called. After Watson blocked Nia's attack, he asked that question tentatively. His original intention was to get some information and see if there was a way to crack that terrifying rule. He thought that Nia would not reveal it so easily, so he did not expect Nia to open her mouth as soon as he finished speaking. My ability is to control the movement of energy factors. It can speed up the movement of energy and also reduce it. I call that ability molecular control. Nia's ability was no longer controlling the macroscopic power of space or time but the control of the surrounding particles. From vast to small, from empty to clear. That was the difference between gods and humans, the symbol of being close to the universe. To be close to the universe was to understand the truth. Are you human? Watson asked with a strange expression. He had reached Diamond Tier. Although he could use Starlight Tier moves, they were crude and could not be compared to a real Starlight Tier god. When the same Starlight Tier ability was used, it would only take a fraction of the god's power to destroy him. That was the difference in understanding power. Watson had understood the concept of time and space, but Nia had already understood the essence of the energy factors that made up time and space. How could he fight her? He had used the system to get to where he was that day, so Watson understood how difficult it was to master that kind of power at his age. However, Nia was stronger than him. That was too exaggerated. That was also the reason he asked Nia if she was human. He felt like no matter how talented a human was, they would not be able to reach such a level. Nia did not answer Watson's question. She extended her hand silently. Watson did not need Nia's reply because he already had the answer in his mind. Starlight Tier ability, Void Vault, activate. Starlight Tier ability, time reversal. Watson used two different peak Starlight Tier weapons in succession. The former tore through space, causing the space around the entire Royal Academy to become pitch black. Within it, many spiral-shaped tunnels connected different worlds. In one of the spiral tunnels, colorful rainbow colors were reflected. Giants of various colors that were thousands of times taller than humans appeared from within the tunnel. In a nearby tunnel, a huge scarlet eyeball appeared, and as the eyeball approached, the outline of the entire body was revealed. It was a giant dragon head that stretched for 1,000 meters. There were also giant tentacles that extended from the passageways. Each tentacle had a scarlet eye hanging from it, spinning and shining in different directions. The Void Vault could connect to all the hidden dimensions in the world. No matter where that dimension existed, whether it was protected by magic or not, time reversal could reverse the time of those mysterious dimensions to thousands of years ago. The more time passed, the more powerful the creatures in those mysterious spaces would be. That was the method Watson wanted to use to defeat Nia. His own strength was not enough to defeat Nia, so he might be able to use those terrifying creatures. What are those creatures? A huge hole appeared above the audience. A claw of an unknown creature stretched out from it. It looked like it was made of white bones, but it had 8 fingers, and it was huge. The claw scared them so much that they crawled under the chair. He summoned so many terrifying creatures. Is Watson still human? The others were the same. They dared to crawl under the chair, and the cowards simply collapsed on the ground, their faces pale. The double protective barrier built by Antonio and Reed was useless in front of those ancient monsters because the attacks released by the Crown Staff and the Thread of Destiny were only comparable to gods, and those monsters could be gods themselves. After those monsters appeared, Nia's expression changed. Watson, you can summon so many ancient creatures. Forget about the giants. You actually summoned the ancient demonic dragon, the evil god, and other creatures. Some of those creatures are very talented and can barely fight against gods. I have to say that it was a strong move. It's a pity that you're facing me. Nia stretched her hand outward, and the cold tide that filled the sky pounced on the ancient creatures. The creatures used different methods to block it. The giants used weapons that could split the world in the cold tide. The ancient demonic dragons swallowed the cold tide in one go, and each eye on the evil god's tentacles emitted a red light that melted the cold tide. Those ancient creatures were very powerful, so they had a lot of energy in their bodies. The collision was intense. Even if Nia had the ability to slow the molecules, she could not freeze all the creatures. After knowing that, Nia did not hesitate. She reached out and pulled out a crystal necklace from her neck. There was a horn hanging on the chain. She put the horn in her mouth and gently blew it. The ancient sound traveled through time and landed on the earth. It was like the sound of countless gods fighting on the battlefield or the explosion of stars in the opening of the universe. Almost everyone covered their ears in pain when it exploded. Some of them were even covered in a layer of frost. The tunnel that Watson had summoned to connect to the mysterious space was suddenly covered in a layer of ice. It froze in midair. Watson was also frozen in midair. Victory and defeat are already decided. You've forced me to use the Nirvana horn that has been with me since I was born. Watson, you are a good opponent. Nia put down the horn and looked around the frozen arena and the Royal Academy as she muttered to herself. That item was a divine artifact from when she was a god. After her reincarnation, that item had become a container to store her power and memories as a god. Nia's body was only at peak gold tier. There was a limit to how much power a god could unleash. However, the Nirvana horn was different. For a short period, the horn would allow her to unleash the power of a true god. Watson, as a mortal, deserved a word of praise for fighting a true god. That was an affirmation from the gods. It seems like Watson is done here? King Landhar III's constantly swirled the wineglass. I'm afraid that the plans I made previously won't be of any use. At the Saint Laurent family's seats in the audience, the old woman stared at Watson for a long time before revealing a thoughtful expression. That face is really similar to Edward, who left the Saint Laurent family. I heard that he went to the border. I also heard that the youth is also from the border. Is he Edward's son? We can talk about that matter later. No matter what, Nia has won the battle. Indeed, no matter how talented a mortal is, they can't defeat a god. That is the gap between their levels and their understanding of power. It seems that the outcome has been decided. Watson is already very powerful to be able to summon so many terrifying creatures. I can see that each of those creatures is no weaker than Augustus. It's because his opponent is too powerful. The Ice Demoness lives up to her reputation. I wonder what kind of magic is capable of freezing those creatures in an instant. Watson has tried his best. It seems like he can only stop at second place. The winner is Nia. Many of the audience climbed up from their chairs and calmed down from the fear caused by the powerful monster that Watson had summoned. At the same time, they looked regretful. Watson was so powerful, yet he could not get first place. That made them feel sorry for the genius, just like they felt sorry for Augustus, who Watson had defeated. The conversations gradually grew louder. Everyone felt like Watson had already lost. Nia had already turned around and walked down the stage. In the sky, it seemed like even King Landhar III had given up. However, at that moment, crack, the sound of ice breaking rang out, causing Nia, who was about to leave, to turn her head in surprise. Her pink lips slightly parted, only to see the ice layer on Watson gradually shattered, causing him to fall to the ground. Miss Nia, the battle is not over yet. Don't be in a hurry to leave. I haven't finished using my moves yet. System fusion, activate. Quote. After Watson left the ice seal, he immediately extended his fingers in all directions. The bodies of the strange-looking magical beasts, which had been frozen in the sky, melted with the ice on them. They turned into rays of light, fusing in front of Watson, forming an even larger phantom image. Watson is fine. He can still fight. Furthermore, Watson used his unique skill that allows him to fuse the holy relics. Previously, he used that skill to fuse the holy relics into weapons. I wonder what he will fuse this time. A wave of cheers erupted on the stage because of Watson's comeback. Rays of light in front of Watson suddenly expanded and contracted, turning into a bumpy sphere that emitted the light of the stars. On the ball's surface, there were also several irregular spheres of different sizes that revolved around it. It was clearly only the size of a human head, but the moment it appeared, the entire Royal Academy's ground sank by several meters. The audience subconsciously reached out to grab the armrest of their chair as if there was a powerful magnet pulling them in. Congratulations, Master, for fusing so many ancient magical beasts and creating a living miniature planet of a peak starlight tier magical beast. Peak starlight tier magical beast, living miniature planet. This magical beast is Ascension planet. Abilities. Creature creation, it consumes energy to create a race. As long as the energy is sufficient, it can create any known race. Planet power, contains the power of an entire planet. The force of the explosion will destroy the planet. Stellar evolution, it can consume all its abilities to evolve into a star. After it evolves into a star, its energy will expand by tens of millions of times. It can only be used once until all its power is exhausted. Although the fusion of the magical beasts contained very few abilities, every skill was powerful, especially the evolution of a star. Watson could turn a living asteroid into a star, and the star was also the sun. There were energy collisions all the time, but even after hundreds of millions of years, the energy would not dissipate completely. No matter how powerful Nia's ability to stop the energy molecules was, it could not cause a sun to fall into extinction. That was his trump card against Nia. Watson, you just asked me a question, and now I want to ask you as well. You just asked me if I'm human. What about you? Are you human? After Watson created a living asteroid, Nia could not help but ask him that question. In Nia's heart, Watson's actions had already exceeded the limits of a human. She suspected that Watson was the child of God, like her. However, the battle still had to continue. Watson, I just told you that I have two abilities. One is to slow the movement of molecules, and the other is to make them move faster. I've only used the first ability. Now, it's time for you to see my second ability. If you detonate that living asteroid, I might be difficult to deal with. But if you give me time to react, the situation will be different. Nia spoke with a calm expression. She picked up the horn and blew it at the living asteroid. At that time, the horn no longer had the power to freeze things. That power accelerated the operation of all things, and it was displayed on the living asteroid. The power contained in that asteroid could have existed for hundreds of millions of years, but under Nia's control, the power collided in an unprecedented way, causing that living asteroid to collapse. The star was instantly exhausted, and the remnants of the upgrade shot toward Watson's direction. One could only imagine the power that shot out and directly pierced through Watson's chest, leaving a large hole in his chest. A few broken ribs could be seen inside. It almost pierced Watson's heart. Watson, you should have admitted defeat. Nia looked at Watson, who was clutching his heart with one hand and supporting himself with the other. Watson's face distorted in pain, but he was still holding on. That made her a little uncomfortable, and she changed her tone. Watson, I beg you, admit defeat. Chapter 429. The Kingdom's Strongest Genius. There was once a god whose power was so great that everyone feared him. Wherever she went, the ground was filled with glaciers, and all things died. Anyone who disobeyed her was turned into ice sculptures and dust. Her power was unparalleled, even in the many divine kingdoms filled with gods. However, she was not satisfied with that. She still desired a more powerful tier, so she pulled herself down from the high altar and became immortal to cultivate it again. Her name was Nia, the goddess who was crowned with ice and cold. Nia looked at Watson, who was kneeling on one knee. It seemed like his ribs were broken. He was clutching his heart, but he did not admit defeat. Her eyes were cold. In the past, she had witnessed the rise and destruction of countless kingdoms, and some were even destroyed by her own hands. She had fought against heroes and gods countless times. Among them, many had the same strong fighting spirit as Watson. However, no matter how tenacious they were and what kind of fighting spirit they had, she always managed to kill them. She was tired of such actions. In that life, she only wanted to seek Tao. She wanted to pursue the peak of power. In her eyes, as a mortal, Watson was able to do that, though he could barely fight against her. Such a person might become a god in the future. It would be a pity to die there. She looked at Watson with no killing intent, only pity. Miss Nia, you haven't won yet. I still haven't used my strongest move. If I can't make that move, then I will admit defeat. Watson spat out a mouthful of blood that splattered to the ground. It looked gorgeous. For Watson, he had experienced many battles with powerful enemies because he controlled the system, but he had won them all. Some of the fights were dangerous, but he had never been injured so severely. If he had not used the power of the wheel of reversal to seal his own time, he might have died in the next moment. The intense pressure stimulated his strong fighting spirit. His goal was to overthrow the monarch and become the new ruler of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. If he could not even defeat Nia, who had the strength of a god, then how could he defeat King Landhar III, who had the support of 7 gods? Flames burned his eyes. Watson endured the pain and got up from the ground. The wheel of reversal and the compass floating behind him automatically floated into his hands. This is my strongest move. I can't hold back. Miss Nia, you have to be careful. I'm not sure how powerful this move is. It's very likely to kill you. I hope you can surrender. Nia did not say anything. She just looked at Watson quietly, as if telling him to continue. Watson nodded and did not say anything else. He combined the limitless compass and the wheel of reversal and used the most powerful skill of the wheel of reversal, which he had not used since the beginning of the battle. Summoning my future self. As Watson shouted in his heart, the wheel of reversal burst with bright light. A door made of pure time appeared behind Watson. Countless hands circled the door, pushing time into an infinite future. A hand stretched from the door. It was hard to imagine what kind of hand it was. It looked white and slender, no different from an ordinary person, but it was filled with divine radiance. There were tiny spheres on the fingers that were emitting starlight. They seemed to be miniature stars. The moment he summoned that hand, Watson suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The time froze his body to maintain the stability of his injuries seemed to be somewhat unstable, but he did not care and continued to summon his future self. When he had obtained the wheel of reversal, he tried to summon his future self from the next 10 years. His future self was too powerful, so he failed. At that time, things were different. He had obtained the limitless compass that contained the energy of space and could fold the distance between 1,000 worlds together. If his future self were too powerful and could not descend through the time gate for a short period, then he would use the limitless compass to shorten the distance between himself and his future self, forcefully descending into his main body. The limitless compass and the wheel of reversal, open it for me. 10 years from now, I will descend here. His voice squeezed through the gaps between his teeth and spread throughout the entire area. In that instant, the originally small time gate behind him suddenly increased in size and split, from 1 time gate to 100. Each gate was 10 times larger than the previous. After the gate of time expanded, the future Watson, with only one hand stretched outward, suddenly revealed his entire appearance. The future Watson had a head of brilliant starlight hair. Every strand of hair was made of gentle light, and his appearance was 90% similar to Watson's, only more handsome and mature. The most striking thing about his weather-beaten face was his eyes. His eyes were all-encompassing as if they contained the rise and fall of the sun and the moon, as well as the flow of the nebula. In the future, Watson's temperament would be different from his old self. Even the clothes he wore were filled with extraordinary characteristics. It was a long robe with the starry sky as the background. Through the robe, one could see the endless universe. A glorious divine kingdom floated between the universes, and continents covered in balls of light were beneath those kingdoms. Numerous rings of all sizes were waiting outside the balls of light. They were coveting the continents. When their eyes glanced at the future Watson, who was the size of an ordinary human, they spontaneously revealed a fearful expression. It was as if they saw future Watson as a monster that they could not look directly at. Seems like my past self has summoned me. It looks like it has been almost 10 years. After the future Watson appeared, he looked at Watson and looked around. He immediately familiarized himself with the situation and spoke slowly. His voice was very ethereal as if it resounded in everyone's mind. After seeing the future Watson, many audience members covered their eyes and cried out in shock. Some even had blood oozing out of their ears. My eyes hurt so much. Why can't I see anything? What happened? It feels like someone is talking in my ear. What a strong voice. My eardrums are about to be shattered. Those people could not see the future Watson. They only felt a blank space in front of them. At the same time, it sounded like someone was using a booming voice to say something in their ears. They could not hear it because it was too loud. It was beyond the limits of what they could hear. Watson, who had summoned his future self, was also a little stunned when he saw himself. He had a feeling that he would be very strong in 10 years, but he did not expect to be that powerful. When he looked at his future self, the other man only glanced at him and extended a finger toward him. A strand of starlight from the finger wrapped around the stars that fell on his body, immediately healing the injuries that Nia caused. Watson discovered that the big hole in his chest had completely disappeared. A powerful strength surged from within his body. It was even stronger than before the battle between him and Nia. The future Watson retracted his finger and gently waved his hand. The wheel of reversal and the limitless compass immediately flew to his side and shook slightly. Looking at the items in his hand, the future Watson said slowly, "The wheel of reversal and the limitless compass are nostalgic items. It's a pity that these two items are only at the peak of the starlight tier. They won't be able to support my current strength for long. As I don't have much time, I'll make it short. From now on, you must seize the time to become stronger. Your real enemy isn't in this kingdom, but in the Thorn Empire in the east. Remember, you only have 3 years. Perhaps you won't understand what I'm saying now. You only need to remember what I said. In 3 years, you must eradicate the Empire because..." When the future Watson said that, his words became blurry, and even his incomparably powerful figure became blurry. "Looks like it's time." Watson vaguely heard those words, and then he saw his future self turn his head and extend a finger to Nia in front of him. Ever since his future self descended, Nia had not made any movements. Instead, there was a look of doubt and even fear on her face. Facing her future self, even someone as powerful as Nia could not remain calm. After seeing the future Watson stretch out his hand, Nia did not hesitate. She immediately put her hands together and formed a strange shape. The horn hanging around her neck shattered and turned into snow-white light spots that gathered in her hands. They formed a complicated and mysterious huge magical array, activated by her ability to accelerate molecules. A bright light immediately erupted. The light was so huge that it blotted out the sky and the sun. It was brighter than the sun and was thousands of times stronger than the move Nia had used on Watson. Watson had a feeling that he would be melted into dregs if he could not resist that move. He even felt like Nia's move could blast the capital to the end of the world, turning everything along its way into ashes. Nia must have felt an intense threat from Watson's future self. She did not even hesitate to destroy a divine weapon to launch that powerful attack. The power of that attack was unquestionably Nia's full-strength attack. However, it was useless against the future Watson. He only gently pressed down with his outstretched finger. The terrifying attack that could pierce through the entire world in front of Nia was completely absorbed. The huge magic array quickly shrank and turned into a small black dot. Following that, Nia's body also shrank and turned into a small black dot. Then, the small black dot disappeared into the air as if nothing had happened. After that, future Watson looked at Watson before his figure disappeared into the time gate that was gradually collapsing. The time gate disappeared, and Watson sat on the ground. The limitless compass and the wheel of reversal returned to both sides of his body to protect him. His whole body was in pain. Even though his soul felt a piercing agony, his soul still had a starlight tier chaos elemental magical source. More than half of the energy had disappeared and was close to drying up. Watson smiled bitterly. "Even though the future me has healed my injuries, I am still so exhausted. Fortunately, the battle is over. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for me even to lift a finger." Unfortunately, Nia disappeared after future Watson attacked her. He did not understand it. It was beyond his comprehension level. He had tried to persuade Nia, but she did not listen. He had done everything he could. Even if he felt guilty, there was nothing he could do about it. He took a deep breath as he lay on the ground and looked at the white clouds floating across the blue sky. He felt relaxed. Finally, it's all over. This win has not come easily. Quote, before the competition, he did not expect that there were still people in the kingdom who could fuse holy relics to obtain starlight tier power. He also did not expect that there were monsters with true divine power hidden in the kingdom too. However, after the battles, he felt like his strength had improved. At the same time, he had touched a corner of the great power hidden behind the kingdom. That made him feel like his efforts had not been in vain. The only thing that weighed on his mind was what his future self had told him. What do you mean by the real enemy is not in the kingdom but the Thorn Empire? Logically speaking, the Thorn Empire is not as powerful as this kingdom. They don't even have a diamond tier elite. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to act rashly because of Master Reed's deterrence. If I become the king, won't I be able to control the fate of my friends? Is there something in the Thorn Empire that can threaten my family and me? Also, why did future me say that I only have 3 years? What will happen to the Thorn Empire in those 3 years? Watson pondered that for a moment. He felt like the information he had was too little, so he decided not to think about it for the time being and enjoyed a moment of silence. What happened? Why did Miss Nia disappear? Does that mean that Watson has won? In the audience stands, a certain nobleman finally regained his senses after Watson defeated Nia. He rubbed his sore and tearful eyes and looked at the arena with great difficulty with a surprised expression. Not far away from him, in the direction of the Saint Laurent family, the old woman suddenly stood up from her chair. Her expression was filled with panic and a trace of terror. Nia has disappeared? As the child of God, how could Nia have lost? Perhaps Nia was unable to withstand the other party's attack and took the initiative to hide? That was impossible. How powerful must one be to defeat a child of God? They must be at least Starlight tier. Did that mean Watson was also a child of God? In King Landhar III's private viewing room in the sky, the king tightened his hold on his wineglass slightly, causing a crack to appear on it. What just happened? King Landhar III looked around him. Antonio and Reed, who were sitting next to him, were also at a loss. Obviously, they did not know what had happened, which made his face turn a little gloomy. With the help of the gods, he had reached the peak of Diamond tier, which was not bad at all. However, he had always concealed his strength. When Watson and Augustus fought, even if their strengths had reached the Starlight tier, he would not think much of it. He knew that there was a fundamental difference between barely used strength and a god-like existence. However, he had changed his mind. He saw and understood Nia's ability, but he did not understand Watson's actions at all. Watson, you have really exceeded my expectations once again. That is great. If you are not a genius at this level, then my plans would be useless. Watson, are you going to show off your brilliance to your heart's content? The more dazzling you are, the more helpful you'll be to my future. Just as everyone was deep in their own thoughts, a sudden change occurred on the stage. Nia, who had initially disappeared, suddenly emerged from a small black dot. At first, the small black dot was barely noticeable, but it quickly became a person-sized shape. Nia, who had escaped from the black dot, had also changed from the size of a pinhole to the size of an ordinary human. However, Nia was covered in blood. Her long, iris-like dress had become tattered. The silver-gray curls that she had so carefully styled had become stuck to her face. No way. You managed to escape? How am I supposed to win this? Nia's appearance caught Watson's attention. He rolled his eyes, and the corner of his mouth had started to twitch. His opponent was too powerful. It seemed like he had to admit defeat, even if he did not want to. Miss Nia is still alive. What? The audience burst out into cheers. In the direction of the Saint Laurent family, the old woman realized that Nia had returned. She sat back on her chair. Then, a smile appeared on her face. I told you that Nia wouldn't be defeated so easily. Now that Nia is back, the battle will continue. It seems like Watson has lost his strength after that unknown attack. Nia's victory is within reach. Our Saint Laurent family will control the kingdom's future king. Then, the old woman's smile froze in the next second. Nia, who had escaped from the black dot, raised her right hand to the sky. I admit defeat. Watson won this match. What? The old woman's eyes widened. It seemed like Nia could still move. Why did she not go up and finish off Watson? She did not understand it, but before she could react, King Landhar III's voice immediately burst from the private room in the sky. Since Nia has admitted defeat, then the final winner of this competition has been decided. Thank you for your contributions, allowing everyone in the kingdom to see your strength and witness the rise of our kingdom. I hereby announce that the winner of this competition is Watson. From now on, I will bestow upon him the title of the kingdom's strongest genius. Chapter 430. First Kiss. Clap. No one knew who in the audience started clapping, and then more people started clapping. Clap. Clap, clap. The applause was thunderous, and every spectator stood up from their seats. When Watson summoned his future self, they felt tremendous pressure, as if the world was collapsing. They could not help but feel the fear of death in their hearts. However, that feeling only lasted for a moment before it disappeared, making them wonder if what they felt was an illusion. No matter what, they all saw an exhilarating battle. Initially, they were there to see Augustus and Watson in a similar match as before, but they did not expect the situation to be 100 times more intense than they had imagined. That match would be the most exciting battle they had ever seen in their lives. Without a doubt, perhaps no one would be able to surpass Watson and Nia until they died. Whether it was Nia, who nearly killed the entire stadium with her kingly posture, or Watson, who was still tenacious even after falling into a difficult situation and finally turned defeat into victory, their strength and spirit were worthy of everyone's admiration. Good job, Watson. I knew you could win. DMN it. I bet 100,000 gold coins on Augustus. I had hoped that Augustus would be able to turn defeat into victory, but in the end, he did not even enter the finals. I've wasted 100,000 gold coins. If I had known earlier, I would have placed my 100,000 gold coins on Watson. To be able to see such a thrilling performance is truly a life without regrets. The only flaw is that the audience stands are too close. Several times, I felt the aftermath of Watson's attack pass through the protective barrier and almost kill me. His Majesty has named Watson as the kingdom's #1 genius. I don't think that's appropriate. I think he's the kingdom's #1 elite. The spectators were discussing it animatedly, each of their faces filled with enthusiasm. Watson looked at Nia in a daze. Why did you admit defeat? Future you has shown mercy to me. That's how I escaped from him. From now on, I owe you my life, and you've given me hope of breaking through to a higher level. In return, I'll give you this victory. At the same time, I hope to become your servant. I'll observe you closely and learn how to become more powerful. Nia's serious reply made Watson feel somewhat puzzled. His strength was not even as good as Nia's. How could he let her learn from him? Nia even wanted to become his servant. It was not fitting for the Saint Laurent family's future heir to be his future heir. He would not agree to it, let alone the Saint Laurent family. Watson was still complaining when he saw Nia walking straight toward him. When she got close to him, Nia reached out and picked him up. Then, she lowered her head slightly and pressed her lips against his. The boisterous crowd fell silent at that moment. They stared blankly at the young boy and girl who were kissing in the field. What was going on? Watson felt the softness of Nia's lips. Since he had transmigrated to that world, he had come into contact with many girls. Many girls had intimate contact with him. For example, Wendy always helped him bathe. However, that was the first time he had kissed a girl. In other words, that was his first kiss. After being at a loss for a few seconds, Watson suddenly reacted and pushed Nia away. Miss Nia, what are you doing? My honorable young master Watson, I am helping you with your treatment. As a servant, am I wrong to do that? Many members of my family like to do that to the servants. I thought that that was something that a servant should do for their master. Nia touched her lips, then turned her head, appearing very silly and cute. That was definitely a problem with the Saint Laurent family. Covering his lips, Watson suddenly realized something. After the battle, it had been difficult for him to move his fingers because he was tired. After that kiss, though, he was full of energy and did not seem to be tired at all. It seemed like he could fight Nia for another 300 rounds. I can move. I used the power of acceleration to stimulate the magical elements in your body and soul, master, and restored your condition to the peak. Thank you. No, don't do that to me again. Watson thanked her, and Nia began to approach him again. The Saint Laurent family members never thank the maids. They only ask them to take off their clothes. If master is not satisfied with my behavior just now, I can find another way to make master happy. No need, Miss Nia. I have already recovered. I don't need you to do those unnecessary things. Watson quickly held Nia down, who was trying to do something. If Nia did something even more outrageous in public, his reputation would be ruined. Watson turned around. He realized that all the noblemen in the audience were giving him strange looks. There were also whispers of gossip. No way. Miss Nia actually kissed Watson on her own accord in front of so many of us. As a nobleman, It must have been too passionate for Watson to express his love in public. Furthermore, Miss Nia was fighting Watson to the death. Is that a lover's spat? Well, people do say that fights lead to friendships. Perhaps Miss Nia was attracted by Watson's strength during the battle. A strong man attracts girls. Now it seems like it's true. Watson's head hurt when he heard that. Things were not what they did at all. He wanted to explain, but a young female voice filled with anger came from behind him before he could speak. Watson, you be ****. How could you kiss other women besides me? Don't you know that you're my future husband? You planned to have an affair before you got married? Or have you forgotten how sweet we were when you tied me up and dipped me in the hot spring when we were in the Sword Saint's courtyard? It was Princess Kiana. She held her golden red dress with both hands and rushed toward the arena. She ignored her image and jogged toward Watson. She looked furious. The three princes chased after her helplessly. As they chased, they ridiculed her. The eldest prince said, "Kiana, pay attention to your image. This is a public place. Also, what one does before one gets married is not considered cheating." The second prince said, "And Kiana, what do you mean by binding and soaking in the hot spring? Why didn't I hear about that?" Only the third prince waved his fists angrily, looking at Watson with an unfriendly gaze. "Kiana, did that guy bully you? Don't worry, I'll avenge you." The scene immediately became even more out of control. Being tied up in the hot spring? I didn't expect Watson to have such a hobby, doing such a terrible thing to the young princess, a nobleman whispered in the audience. The people nearby nodded as well. According to the princess, she had a relationship with Watson before the end of the competition. What would she do if Watson was not the champion? Although the probability of that happening is tiny. But not only did he make Miss Nia like him, but he also seduced the princess. Watson's luck in love is really enviable. Many of the spectators revealed looks of envy and hatred toward Watson. Which man did not yearn to have two women in each arm? Furthermore, one of Watson's two admirers was a noble princess whose status was above everyone else, and the other was the Saint Laurent family's daughter. Her status was equally noble, and her strength was formidable. Watson's future was simply unimaginable with those two women. "Everyone, it's not what you think. You've misunderstood. I'm innocent." Watson shook his arms and tried to explain himself. However, his voice drowned in the waves of other people's voices. No one paid any attention to him. On the contrary, after Kiana came to him, she panted for a while. Then, as if she wanted to retaliate against Nia, she stood on her tiptoes and kissed Watson's face. She pointed at Nia and scolded, "You shameless woman. Watson is mine. Get out of my way. Did I do something bad? I'm sorry, I've decided to become Watson's servant. I apologize if I made you unhappy, but I won't leave." "You stinky woman, I'm so angry." Kiana stomped her feet in anger. The crown was in an uproar when she kissed Watson. Some people even whistled frivolously. Just as the situation was about to get out of hand, King Landhar III's majestic voice came from the sky. "All of you, be quiet. The competition is over. As the champion, Watson is now my daughter's fiancé. At the same time, he will obtain the right to become the future king. Your rude words to Watson are an insult to the future king. Do you know your crime? If there is nothing else, all of you will stay here and continue to watch the battle between the other geniuses. It will determine the kingdom's genius rankings from the 3rd to the 16th place. If all of you don't want to watch, you may leave." The crowd quieted down and began to leave. At least half of the audience had left. After watching Watson and Nia's outstanding performance, the fights between the other geniuses sounded dull. The crowd had also told their relatives and friends who were not there about Watson's encounter with the two beautiful girls. "Watson, you heard what father said? Now that you're my fiancé, you can't be with other women, especially that battered woman whose face is covered in blood." Kiana glared at Nia. She grabbed Watson's hand. "Come, follow me back to the palace. I'll show you my room and finish what I did not finish the last time." "What did you not finish the last time? Can I take a look? Maybe I can help." Nia did not understand why Kiana was angry. "You can't help. I told you to stay away from Watson. Why can't you understand that?" Nia angered Kiana again. "Enough. I'm tired. I want to go home to rest. I'm not going anywhere." Annoyed by those two girls, Watson shook off Kiana's hand and disappeared with a teleportation spell. Only Kiana and Nia were left on the spot, looking at each other and quarreling. One girl said, "It's all your fault for quarreling and letting Watson run away." Then, the other girl said, "Really? I don't quite understand, and the one who has been quarreling is you." Several members of the Saint Laurent family asked the old woman, whose expression had darkened. "Master, what should we do now? What else can we do? Bring Nia back and lock her up. If she continues quarreling with the princess, our heads will fall." Nia actually kissed Watson in front of so many people. As the child of God, doesn't she have no feelings? The old woman's face was ashen. Nia's actions had caused the Saint Laurent family to lose their standing. At that moment, she could feel many burning gazes coming from all directions. "Yes, master." The Saint Laurent members nodded respectfully and were about to leave when the old woman suddenly said, "Wait a moment. After you take Nia away, investigate that boy called Watson and find out what his background is and which border family he is from. I have a feeling that the boy is very similar to someone I know. If they are related, then it doesn't matter even if Nia doesn't get first place in that competition." He did not know what had happened on the competition grounds, nor did he know that the rumors about him, the princess, and Nia would spread throughout the capital. After Watson teleported to the Sword Saint's courtyard, he told Samuel and the other senior brothers that he was tired and had to return to his room to rest. He did not want to see anyone, even his masters. Then, he returned to his room and fell asleep on his bed. He did not know how to explain what had happened in the competition, including how he had defeated Nia. However, his masters and Christina would definitely ask him about it when they returned. He decided not to explain. Watson did not sleep well and had a dream. In the dream, he accepted the title of the strongest genius conferred by King Landhar III in front of many Royal Academy members and was forced to marry Kiana. However, on the day of the wedding, Nia barged in and fought with Kiana. In the end, Nia and Kiana held onto each one of his arms and argued. Then, they used a knife to split him into two. Whoosh! Watson got up from the bed and lamented that it was a nightmare. He raised his hand to wipe the sweat off his forehead, but at that moment, someone handed him a towel. He subconsciously said, "Thank you." Then, he wiped his forehead with the towel. Suddenly, he felt like something was wrong. He turned his head and saw a 14-year-old girl standing at the head of his bed. Silver-gray Roman curls hung on both sides of her body. She was dressed in a decent maid's outfit. She humbly placed her hand on her lower abdomen. "My master, you're awake. May I ask if you had a nightmare?" "Nia, why are you here? Today is the Royal Academy's opening day. I'm here to wake you up, master." "That is my job as a servant," Nia replied calmly. She was there to wake him? A huge question mark appeared above Watson's head. He wondered how she got into his room. That was the Sword Saint's courtyard. No matter how strong Nia was, she could not have appeared there so quietly. Master Antonio and Master Reed would not have agreed to do that. Boom! Suddenly, someone kicked the door open. Kiana, dressed in a gorgeous long dress, went into the room as two maids helped to hold her skirt. She looked at Watson. "I'm here to wake you up. You should be grateful." "Arg, Nia, why are you here? You're such a clingy girl. I knew you would not give up so easily. Get out of my way. Watson is mine." Kiana was like a lion who had seen its enemy. She pounced on her with bared fangs and claws, but Nia easily dodged her. On the other hand, Kiana tripped and fell on the soft bed because her skirt was too long. She raised her head and rubbed her forehead. Kiana did not leave the bed. Instead, she climbed up and wrapped herself with the blanket. She wriggled on the bed like a worm and approached Watson. "Watson, let's play a game." Watson had a headache. He bounced from the bed and stood in his pajamas. "Let's forget about Nia. How did you get in, Princess Kiana?" He remembered that he had made it very clear to his senior brothers that he did not want to be disturbed while he was resting, not even if King Landhar III was there. As one of his believers, Samuel would not have gone against his will. "I walked in through the door." Kiana saw that Watson was not paying attention to her. She rolled a few times on the bed to entice him. Then, she sat on the edge of the bed and pointed outside. "I only gave them a little reward, and your two masters let me in." "What?" Watson looked outside the door. He saw Antonio and Reed leading Samuel and the other disciples to stand in 2 rows in the long corridor. They looked like a group of guards. A group of luxuriously dressed noblemen stood in front of them. The leader was the old woman from the Saint Laurent family. There were dozens of people following behind her. Each of them was holding a diamond-tier holy relic or an equivalent treasure in their hands. Watson has just been through a battle and is extremely tired. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. If you want to go in, you'll likely make him angry. He has a bad temper. When he gets angry, we can't control him. However, if you can give him a holy relic or an equivalent gift, perhaps he won't be so angry. Antonio stroked his non-existent beard and smiled. Reed, who was beside him, said, "That's right. As Watson's master, no one knows him better than me. His favorite thing is to collect powerful treasures. As long as the treasures satisfy him, he won't complain. You can talk to him and ask him anything." "Of course, Master Antonio." "Master Reed, don't worry. Just say the word. We will try our best to make Watson satisfied." The nobleman smiled. Samuel, who was standing behind Reed, said in a low voice, "Master, junior brother Watson said that he doesn't want anyone to disturb him, but you guys are making profits like this. He might get angry if this wakes him. Besides, I think it's not right to use others to make profits." "Are you sure?" Reed glanced at Samuel and handed him a holy relic. "I'm giving you this. Do you still think so?" "I think it's still a little. I'll give you another one." After he was handed the two holy relics, Samuel hesitated for a moment, and his expression became firm. "Master, there's nothing wrong with your method. Although junior brother Watson told us not to disturb him, you and Master Antonio his masters. They say that a master is just like a father, a status that is higher than the mountain. You must have a special purpose in doing this, perhaps for junior brother Watson's sake. I believe that he will not say anything even when he finds out about it." Chapter 431. The Key to the Great Library. "That's right. Antonio and I are doing that so that Watson can interact more with the nobleman and expand his network in the kingdom for the future. As for waking him up, we're doing it so that he can seize the time to go to the Royal Academy to train and avoid slacking off." "Everything is for his own good," Reed said. Samuel nodded. "Master." At that moment, Watson's tender voice came from behind Reed. He could not help but tremble as he turned his head. He saw Watson behind him, and his eyebrows twitched. He was staring at him with a strange expression as if he was trying to hold back something. "Watson, what's wrong? Did the two ladies who just entered your room do something to make you angry?" "They did not make me angry. On the contrary, Master, I can't accept what you're doing right now. Didn't I tell you yesterday that I would not see anyone no matter who came? It's fine if you did not want to help, but why did you take the initiative to send an outsider into my room? Antonio and I weren't too clear about that. Who did you tell?" Quote, "Senior Samuel. Samuel, what's wrong with you? Did Watson tell you that he was tired and could not see any guests? Why did you let so many people in? Apologize to your junior brother." Reed frowned and turned to scold Samuel, who was holding the two holy relics. He was stunned. He was at a loss. Reed gave him two holy relics to force him to agree. Why did he blame him? "Master Reed, Master Antonio, please postpone the quarrel between you guys. I brought the members of the Saint Laurent family here because I had something important to tell Watson. Time is limited. Can you let us talk to Watson first?" After watching for a while, among the many nobles waiting in front of Reed, the leader, an old woman wearing a veil and a purple dress, laughed and interrupted Reed's reprimand of Samuel. In their eyes, that time, it was clearly Reed and Antonio who had used Watson to receive a wave of gifts. However, after Watson discovered them, they did not want to bear Watson's anger, so they could only blame Samuel. None of that was important to them. What was important was that after the competition yesterday, the head of the Saint Laurent family, the old woman in front of him, asked his subordinates to investigate Watson's matter. According to their investigations, they had really found some important things, forcing them to come to the Sword Saint's courtyard to see Watson. "Madam Ophelia, what you said makes sense." Antonio nodded to the old woman in front of him, then looked at Watson. "Watson, let's put our matters aside for now. This is Madam Ophelia. She is the current head of the Saint Laurent family. She came to see you today because she has something very important to tell you. The room has been prepared. The two of you can have a good chat." "Yes, Master." Watson agreed. He sized up the woman named Ophelia. Through the veil, he could still see a trace of familiarity on her face. At the same time, The way Ophelia looked at him made him feel warm. Was it because they shared the same blood? Watson could not help but think about that. He knew that his father, Edward Gary, had committed some unforgivable sin, so he was expelled from the Saint Laurent family and was exiled to the border, and that old woman in front of him was very likely to be his father's relative. Watson had a vague guess as to what the Saint Laurent family's head wanted to talk to him about. Under Samuel's lead, they came to an empty room in the Sword Saint's courtyard. There were more than 10 experts from the Saint Laurent family guarding outside. After the door closed, Ophelia walked to the sofa in the middle of the room and sat down. She pointed at the opposite side and said, "Watson, you sit down too." "I wonder what Madame Ophelia wants to talk to me about," Watson asked after sitting down. "A genius like you should have a certain guess as to why I came to find you." "Why do you think I came to find you?" As Ophelia removed the veil that had been covering her face, she revealed a white-haired head with a ruddy face and a pair of sky-blue eyes as deep as the ocean. "Edward is my son, and I am your grandmother. Is he well, living at the border?" Quote, "As expected, she was here to find her family." Watson sighed in his heart. "Father is well. Don't worry, Madame Ophelia." Watson did not know what mistakes his father had made to be expelled. No matter how Watson asked Edward, he would not say anything. Of course, that was not important because he only needed to know that after his father was expelled, the St. Lawrence did not look for him again. That was enough. Before he awakened the system, his family had lived on a chicken farm. They lived a miserable life where they could only drink a bowl of soup a week. They also had to face the jealousy of other farmers. Where was the Saint Laurent family at that time? Even though he had awakened the system, the dangers he faced were even more terrifying. Nightingale, an assassin sent by the border count, had looked for him. There was also the greedy mage guild that wanted to attack Black Moon Castle. Even Antonio wanted to eliminate them in the beginning. Where was the Saint Laurent family then? Since the Saint Laurent family had given up on them, to Watson, even if they were related by blood, they were only strangers. That was why he did not look at the Saint Laurent family when he went to the royal city. He had not paid any attention to them. At that moment, after seeing his outstanding performance in the exhibition competition and knowing that he had obtained the title of the kingdom's #1 genius, the Saint Laurent family's matriarch had looked for him. Her motive was very obvious. "Watson, I know that you have a grudge against me and the Saint Laurent family for letting your father live at the border for such a long time without caring about anything. However, we also have our own difficulties. After all, the order your father received back then was sent by His Majesty. Instead of carrying out the mission, he let go of the target. Under such circumstances, the Saint Laurent family and I have no way to protect him, let alone visit him. Otherwise, His Majesty would be furious. Your father's life was spared because my husband and I pleaded with the king. We have 4 children. Your father, Edward, is the youngest. The other 3 of his older brothers are not as outstanding as him. Therefore, when my husband was still alive, he loved Edward the most. Unfortunately, after Edward made a mistake and left, my husband quickly died of depression. I inherited his position. Forgive me for locating you so late. It was our fault that the Saint Laurent family did not let Edward stay, but now we want to make up for it. Can you give us a chance to make up for it, Watson?" Ophelia spoke passionately, especially when she recounted her husband's death. She took out a handkerchief and wiped the tears at the corner of her eyes. When a normal person faced such a narration, they would definitely be moved to the point of sympathy. However, it did not work with Watson. He was not an average youth but a 30-year-old adult. He had often seen that kind of method used to incite the other party's feelings. "Madame Ophelia, there's no need to say those words. Just tell me your purpose. What do you want?" "Watson, I want you to return to the Saint Laurent family and become a part of us once again. If you agree, we can even bring your father and your family back to the Saint Laurent family. I'll negotiate with the family and cancel the judgment against your father. What do you think?" "I think it's fine." Watson thought for a moment and nodded. Ophelia's face lit up. Unfortunately, the smile on her face did not last long. It stiffened when Watson said, "I can join the Saint Laurent family. But I want 100 holy relics." 100 holy relics? Watson, did I hear wrongly? We don't have that many. We are sincere in asking for your return. Also, I'm your grandmother. Do you think it's appropriate to propose conditions to me? Why not? In my opinion, 100 holy relics are not much. Furthermore, that is only the price for me to return to the Saint Laurent family. If you want me to address you as my grandmother or the other uncles and aunties of the Saint Laurent family, you'll have to pay an additional price. Of course, you can choose not to pay. If that's the case, I think joining Ptolemy or the Campbell family would be a better choice. They should be much more generous than the Saint Laurent family. Watson's words made Ophelia's eyes widen. She did not know what to say to refute him. Boom! At that moment, the door was pushed open. A burly middle-aged man with brown hair and a mustache entered the room, his angry blue eyes locked onto Watson. "Mother, I told you not to tell Watson that. Back then, my good-for-nothing brother abandoned the Saint Laurent family because of a woman. Now, this little brat is just like him. He doesn't know etiquette, righteousness, and shame. He asked for benefits from the Saint Laurent family, his own family. If you want to pay him 100 holy relics, you might as well expel him from the family. After all, our family already has Nia. This is..." The man looked somewhat similar to his father but had a sturdier appearance and build. "His name is Carlos. He's my eldest son and also your father's eldest brother. You should call him uncle." Watson immediately understood why that man was so angry with him. "Mother, why are you explaining so much to the little brat?" The man named Carlos came in front of Watson, grabbed his collar, and pulled him from the sofa. He said fiercely, "Little brat, I'm warning you. Don't even think about hitting on my daughter. Otherwise, I'll kill you. Do you understand?" "Yes, Master Carlos. In fact, I'm not the one thinking about your daughter. She's the one who's thinking about me. If you can restrain her and make her stop looking for me, then I'll be very grateful." "You detestable kid, what nonsense are you talking about? How could my daughter fall for a guy like you? Today, I'm going to teach you a lesson and make you understand that some words can't be said carelessly." Carlos stretched his fist outward to punch Watson's face. However, the moment he stretched his fist, a thin layer of solid ice condensed around it. That caused his body to freeze, and he turned his head. Behind him, Nia, who was in a maid uniform, slowly walked into the room from the outside. Along the way, the members of the Saint Laurent family revealed fear on their faces. No one dared to stop her. "Father, what are you doing?" "Nia, my sweetheart." "Father, I'm helping you to teach this impolite brat a lesson. He said that you'd taken a fancy to him. I won't let him off easily after making such a joke. Don't worry, I don't need you to make a move. I can defeat him myself." Carlos doted and fawned over his daughter. "Father, just as Watson said, he is my master now. I took the initiative to ask him for that. If you want to attack Watson, even if you are my father, I will do my best to stop you." Nia reached out with her right hand. A faint chill appeared in her palm, which made Carlos' eyes flash with a trace of fear. "Nia, you want to attack me because of an outsider? As your father, I am very sad." Compared to fear, Carlos' expression was more of a disappointment. He ignored her. After entering the room, Nia went straight to Watson's side and smoothed the corner of Watson's clothes, which had become wrinkled because of Carlos. "Master, are you hurt?" "I'm fine." Then, Watson turned around and walked out of the door. Without turning his head, he said, "Let's go, Nia. Otherwise, we won't be able to make it to the Royal Academy's opening ceremony. As for you, Madame Ophelia, remember the conditions I said. I want 150 holy relics, not a single one less." "Watson, you said 100 holy relics. How did it become 150? Ophelia could not help but exclaim. "Because of him." Watson pointed at Carlos and then left with Nia. That detestable brat. After being called by Watson and adding 50 holy relics as bargaining chips, Carlos was so angry that his face turned ashen. He clenched his teeth tightly. "Mother, that fellow is not sincere about cooperating with our Saint Laurent family at all. I suggest that we find an opportunity to simply kill him so that he won't be so arrogant in front of us. Or, we can use the excuse of treating him to a meal as an excuse to poison the food and control him secretly. If he doesn't cooperate, we won't give him the antidote. When the time comes, let's see if he still dares to make such excessive demands." "Shut up, Carlos. Killing Watson and poisoning him? How did you come up with so many stupid ideas? You should understand how terrifying Watson's strength is if he can defeat Nia. Do you think those things are useful to him? Also, Watson is now the princess's fiancé. one of the future heirs to the kingdom. If the king finds out that we made a move on Watson, what do you think he'll do? Then what should we do? What else can we do? Watson wants 150 holy relics. Even if the Saint Laurent family has to sell everything, we must get our hands on those holy relics. We must get Watson to join our family. With Watson's ability and the assistance of the Saint Laurent family, in the future, it won't be difficult for him to defeat the other princes and become the true heir of this kingdom. At that time, the Holy Dragon Kingdom will have a Saint Laurent as the king. How glorious will that be? Watching Watson leave, Ophelia could not help but clench her fists, her eyes flickering. In the past, due to a moment of carelessness, I let Edward go, causing the Saint Laurent family to lose a genius. That matter has already caused me some regret. This time, I won't let you go again, Watson. At the Royal Academy, after discussing it with Ophelia, Watson immediately went back to change his clothes, preparing to head to the Royal Academy. Accompanying him were the three beauties, Kiana, Nia, and Christina. Initially, Nia was wearing a maid's outfit, but that outfit was too eye-catching. Under Watson's firm request, Nia changed her maid's outfit into a pale yellow dress. That egg yolk dress was Christina's previous outfit, and it fitted Nia perfectly. Christina was in a white robe, Nia was in a yellow dress, and Kaya was in a golden red dress. The three women were of different ages, but they were like different kinds of flowers, competing for Watson's attention. The entire street became bright and beautiful. Many passers-by turned their heads and looked at the three beauties, unable to recover from their daze for a long time. That is Princess Kiana, right? I just went to the Royal Academy yesterday to watch the competition. Princess Kiana ran to the stage after the competition and even kissed Watson. The girl next to her is Nia. As expected of the strongest genius in the kingdom, Watson. He has been hugging both of them since early in the morning. It's really enviable. Who is the last woman beside Watson? She looks very mature. In terms of looks, she doesn't seem to be inferior to Miss Nia and Miss Kiana. How can you be so ignorant? That person is the daughter of the current sword saint, Miss Christina, nicknamed the Swordmistress. It is said that she has been living with Watson for a very long time. Perhaps they have a relationship too. It seems like Watson has many more women who like him. If only I had half of his strength. Perhaps I could attract one or two women as well. The discussions of the passers-by around entered Watson's ears, making him not know whether to laugh or cry. Only a day had passed, and in the eyes of everyone, he was already a playboy. In order to change that image, he subconsciously teleported a few meters to the side, pulling a certain distance away from the girls. Who would have thought that just as he teleported out, his body would bump into something soft? Ah, who suddenly appeared and scared me? Running so fast on the streets of the capital, don't you have eyes? If you don't need eyes, I can help you dig them out. Following the girl's rebuke, Watson turned his head and apologized. When he saw the face of the person behind him, he was stunned. Miss Lily? What, Watson? Rubbing her chest, Lily saw the person's face and heaved a sigh of relief. Her angry expression eased a little. Charlotte, who was beside Lily, saw Watson and came over to greet him with a smile. Watson, Lily is in a bad temper today. Please don't take it to heart. Bad temper? What's wrong with Miss Lily? After you and Nia fought yesterday, His Majesty arranged for us to start a new round of matches to set the ranking. In the end, I got 5th place, and Lily got the 8th place. She's not happy. Charlotte pretended to be relaxed. As soon as she finished speaking, Lily rushed in front of her and tried to cover her mouth with her hand. She looked a little annoyed. Really, Charlotte, why did you tell Watson about that? The reason I got 8th place was not that I was not strong enough. It was all because of that monster, Nia. Yesterday, she used an unknown method to freeze me, which affected my performance. After Watson left yesterday, the kingdom immediately identified Watson as the strongest genius in the kingdom. Nia got 2nd place. After a series of battles, Augustus successfully got 3rd place, Christina was 4th place, and Charlotte was 5th place. Lily did not know how she performed so abnormally, but she was defeated by 2 platinum-tier weapon users and only obtained 8th place. It was also worth mentioning that Casey got 10th place, but that was not why Lily was unhappy. Did I do something bad? As soon as Lily's voice fell, Nia, who was not far from Watson, walked forward. Seeing Nia's appearance, Lily's expression changed. She exclaimed, Why are you with Watson?" It was not only Lily but Charlotte's expression changed as well. With a conflicted expression, she nodded. "Greetings, Sister Nia." After the competition, she heard that Nia had a fight with her family. Nia wanted to see Watson, but the Saint Laurent family refused her wish. Nia injured a few of them and forced her way out. She heard that morning, Madame Ophelia had personally brought people to the Sword Saint's courtyard. She did not know if it was because of Nia that she wanted to question Watson. "Hey, Watson, aren't we going to the Royal Academy? Then let's not chat on the road. Let's hurry up and leave." Kiana also reached Watson's side and grabbed his hand in an attempt to lead him away. That action made Charlotte and Lily's eyes widen. Not only is Sister Nia here but the Princess and Lady Swordmistress are also here. Christina nodded slightly, indicating that she had seen them. Meanwhile, Kiana snorted coldly and ignored the two girls. In Kiana's eyes, any beautiful woman who appeared beside Watson, anyone between the ages of 1 to 80 years old, was her enemy. "If I did anything excessive in yesterday's competition and made you feel unhappy, I apologize," Nia said softly. Lily waved her hand awkwardly since Kiana was present. Forget it. Let bygones be bygones. The reason I did not get a good result yesterday is also related to my lack of strength. If I had half of yours or Watson's strength, even if I made a mistake, I would still be able to get into the top 3. As they spoke, the group walked forward. The number of people in the group changed from 4 to 6, which was still increasing. "Excuse me, are you young Master Watson? I saw yesterday's match. It was too exciting. My name is Camille. Can you give me an autograph?" A girl wearing a Royal Academy uniform asked. She looked about the same age as Watson. She held a piece of parchment in her hand and looked at Watson with a fervent gaze. "And me, I'm also a new student at the Royal Academy. Furthermore, I'm a member of the Warrior Department. I'm from the same department as young Master Watson." There were more than 10 noble girls following behind the young girl. They surrounded Watson while chattering, pushing Kiana and the others who were originally beside him to the side. That made Kiana so angry that she stomped her feet. 1, 2, 3, 12. 12 unknown women are surrounding Watson. I'm Watson's fiancé. Are they looking down on me? Don't let me find out which family those people belong to. Otherwise, I will definitely teach them a lesson. Under the embrace of the many beautiful girls, the passers-by on the surrounding streets looked at Watson with even more envy. They wished they could switch places with Watson and let them take over Watson's place to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by beautiful women. Finally, Watson arrived at the Royal Academy entrance. As soon as he entered the academy, a large group of students immediately rushed out. Those students were both male and female, and among them, there was no shortage of teachers from the academy. Their eyes were filled with joy as they looked at Watson. "Watson, you are finally here. As the most outstanding talent in the Royal Academy in the past 100 years, your arrival will definitely allow the academy to rise to a higher level. Even His Majesty has been waiting for you for a long time. Today is the opening ceremony, and at the same time, it is also a ceremony to award you and many other geniuses. Let's hurry over." Under the escort of many students and teachers, Watson and the others quickly arrived at the inner part of the academy. The auditorium was decorated with bright gold and jade, and the floor was covered with a red carpet. The seats were gradually filled with people from the academy. Everyone's eyes were burning with passion, and in front of them was a spacious platform. King Landhar III sat on a throne on the platform, and 10 geniuses stood in front of him. All those geniuses were part of the 16 geniuses who entered the finals yesterday. Watson saw Augustus, Casey, and Lana, the girl named Nero, who Augustus defeated, and a few platinum-tier weapon emissaries selected by King Landhar III. At that moment, those geniuses were led by Augustus to stand in front of King Landhar III. They all puffed out their chests and looked proud. Obviously, becoming one of the 16 geniuses in the kingdom was a very happy thing. While Watson was looking at them, those geniuses also noticed Watson and the others' arrival. Their proud expressions were somewhat restrained. In their eyes, Watson was unquestionably the strongest. In front of Watson, they were like green leaves against bright flowers. Among them, Augustus was looking at Watson with anger in his eyes. He wanted to team up with Watson to defeat Nia. In the end, Watson did not listen to him. As a result, the Campbell family's holy relic was wiped out. Under McGee's fierce resistance, Armand did not dare to use any more holy relics on him. The weapons that he had fused were platinum-tier weapons that His Majesty the King had sold in the market. Those platinum-tier weapons were worth 10,000 gold coins each. If they were damaged, they could be replaced. Watson could never take another holy relic from Augustus' body again. Unfortunately, there was a massive gap between being transformed by platinum-tier weapons and being transformed by holy relics. Augustus could no longer display the strength of a Starlight tier elite. He could only barely reach the level of the Diamond tier. That made him hate Watson even more. Especially when he saw the faintly discernible wheel of reversal and the limitless compass floating behind Watson, his expression became even angrier. Those two weapons should have belonged to him. Watson, you are finally here. You are the only ones left among the kingdom's 16 geniuses. Since you are all here, I will begin to present the prizes. When King Landhar III saw Watson, his eyes flashed, and his voice filled with dignity resounded throughout the entire venue. There were whispers of Watson's attractiveness and how one would like to receive the awards with the geniuses, but the king ignored them. Today is an important day for the kingdom. After the 2-day match, today is the Royal Academy's opening day. Today, I will present the kingdom's Medal of Honor to those 16 geniuses who have made great contributions to the kingdom. I hope that in the future, all of you will be able to improve your strength and make great contributions to the kingdom. As he spoke, King Landhar III walked up to Watson and the others. With his signal, the 16 geniuses stood in a row with Watson as the leader. King Landhar III took out a gold and red medal with a dragon embroidered on it and placed it on Watson and the others' chests. Everyone who received the medal nodded and thanked King Landhar III. Watson was no exception. He lowered his head and looked at the gold dragon medal pinned on his chest. He realized that that medal was not only made of gold, it was also decorated with diamonds. The craftsmanship and raw materials alone could not be compared to ordinary jewelry. Furthermore, there was a magical aura on the badge. It seemed to be able to release a protective shield to protect the host. It was an excellent gold-tier peak magic tool. The Medal of Honor has been distributed. Next, I will give Watson an additional reward. After walking one round, King Landhar III returned to Watson. He picked up the crown on his head and gently fastened it on Watson's head. Then, he reached out and gently stroked Watson's hair. If you wish to inherit the crown, you will have to bear its weight. Watson, I bestow upon you the title of the 4th Prince of the Holy Dragon Kingdom. You will have the right to freely enter the palace and have the same status as my other 3 sons. That crown is my gift to you. I hope that you will study hard in the Royal Academy and work hard to become a qualified monarch one day. Yes, Your Majesty, I will not let you down. Watson knelt on one knee respectfully and bowed his head. Let's call it a day for this medal ceremony. I still have other matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. Next, Principal Brand will give a speech. With those words, King Landhar III left the academy under the escort of his group of guards. Replacing him was a white-haired old man who came onto the stage. He looked at Watson and the others with gratification and then began a long speech. Today, we welcome these new students to the Royal Academy. This time, the number of students is 10 times that of the past. This indicates the rise of the Royal Academy and the rise of the kingdom. Listening to Brand's speech, Watson felt like he was in a math class when he was a child in his previous life. Fortunately, Brand spoke for 10 minutes before his speech came to an end. Next, I shall announce that the opening ceremony of the Royal Academy has come to an end. Next, the teachers will lead you to your respective classes. Before that, Watson, come here. I also said that I would bestow the key to the Great Library to the winner of the competition. Now, here is the key, Watson. Brand took out a golden-colored key on a chain around his neck and waved at Watson. Watson immediately went forward, and Brand hung the chain around his neck. Watson, from now on, you are the gatekeeper of the Royal Academy's Great Library. Anyone who tries to enter the library, be it students or teachers, will be subjected to your scrutiny. At the same time, you have the right to enter the library and flip through books as you wish. I hope you can make good use of that right. Yes, Principal Brand. Watson reached out and caressed the golden key on his neck. The golden key suddenly grew an elf-like wing on its back, and it gently flew up. It drilled into the back of his neck and turned into a golden key-shaped mark, disappearing. Watson, it seems that we are going to be separated. If I had known earlier, I would have chosen to train as a warrior. That way, we can go to class together. Lily first looked enviously at the golden key that had disappeared from Watson's neck. Then, she revealed a reluctant expression. As a genius of the Campbell family, she had heard that the extensive library contained all the knowledge in the kingdom. She also knew how powerful that key was. All of you should just leave. Going to class with Watson is a privilege that only I should have, Kiana said from the side with her hands on her hips. She looked at everyone else. Why aren't you leaving? Do you want me to invite you to leave? Lily and the others could only retreat because of Kiana's imposing manner. I don't want to leave, Master, either. Later, I'll apply to change the department, Nia, who was the only one who did not leave, said expressionlessly. Annoying woman, you're here again. I already said that you're not allowed to follow Watson anymore. Kiana waved her fists at Nia angrily. Seeing that the two of them were about to quarrel again, Watson covered his forehead and sighed. At that moment, a deep voice sounded beside Watson. Watson, right? I'm a teacher in the warrior department. My name is Blue. I hope that all students who choose the warrior department will follow me to the classroom. Watson turned his head and saw that the person talking to him had braids on his head. His skin was dark, and his figure was more robust than ordinary people. He was nearly 3 meters tall and carried a heavy sword on his back. He gave off the feeling of being as steady as a mountain. Nia and Kiana, the two of you should stop arguing. Nia, you better get to the mage department now. That is my order as your master. And Kiana, as a princess and not a student of the Royal Academy, please don't pester me at a time like this. Leave now. Since it's an order, all right, my master, Nia replied respectfully. Kiana complained unhappily, Watson, I'm a princess. How dare you scare me? However, a hint of redness appeared on her face, and her breathing gradually became heavier. It was apparent that she liked Watson's stern scolding. Turning his head, Watson smiled at Blue, the teacher with the warrior department, who was somewhat surprised when he scolded the princess. Teacher Blue, let's go. Following the warrior teacher, Watson arrived at the warrior department in 20 minutes. The Royal Academy had 4 departments corresponding to the 4 major occupations in the kingdom. Among them, the mage department's classroom was in the west, the warrior department was in the east, the priest was in the north, and the archer's classroom was in the south. The warrior department's classroom in the east was a huge building. I wonder what teacher is going to teach us today. Watson thought with anticipation. He took off the crown bestowed by King Landhar III and played with it in his hands. I'm one step closer to the throne. The next step is to recruit as many geniuses as possible in the Royal Academy to become the backbone for me to overthrow the king. He gave me the right to become the future king and conferred me the 4th prince's title. It will be much more convenient for me to do whatever I want. I've also obtained the key to the Great Library. After class ends, I'll go there and use the fusion system to learn. The entire kingdom had accumulated hundreds of years of knowledge and secrets. If he learned all of them, one could imagine how much his strength would rise. The geniuses behind him saw that scene. Most of them looked envious, while a small number of them curled their lips and looked unhappy. That guy is too arrogant. Even though he is strong and awarded the crown and the key to the Great Library, he should not be so happy, right? Someone from the warrior department said in a sour tone. His words did not receive the approval of the people around him but instead made them laugh. Why so jealous? Did you eat lemon? If you were the one who got the title and the key to the Great Library, I'm sure you'd be even happier than Watson. Most of the people who said that were girls. Then, they turned around and chased after Watson's figure with their sparkling eyes. Some people clasped their hands together. It is said that Watson was born in a small noble family at the border. It is all because of his hard work that he can achieve his current status. A hard-working man is the most handsome. In my heart, Watson is completely different from those who rely on their background to succeed. They can't do it themselves and will only be jealous of others. The people who had just ridiculed Watson suddenly turned red in the face. Bullshit, I'm not such a person. Even if I am, I know one person who would definitely not be like that, and that person is Augustus. Young Master Augustus even changed his body in order to win. He is willing to do anything to become stronger. That is a true man, a true elite. He is completely different from a guy like Watson who relies on his talent and puts in very little effort to act so arrogantly. Chapter 432, The Tragic Augustus. Don't you agree, young Master Augustus? After refuting the words of the female students around him, the red-faced warrior turned around and looked at Augustus, who was hugging his shoulders, dressed in black clothes and black gloves. He had been acting arrogantly since the beginning. Shut up, do you know how noisy you are? Augustus raised his head and looked around with his scarlet eyes. The killing intent in his eyes was so strong that both the youth and the girls who worshipped Watson kept their mouths shut and kept quiet. They had watched Augustus' match against Watson. Even though Augustus lost in the end, the strength he displayed on the battlefield was shocking. Otherwise, the youth would not have said that Augustus was better than Watson. At least, with Augustus' strength, crushing them was as easy as crushing a bug. Augustus, we are all classmates. Don't be so rude. Christina frowned and interrupted him. Lady Swordmistress, you don't seem to have anything to do here. Just follow Watson obediently. Augustus smiled arrogantly. Then, he looked at Watson, who was calm as if he was thinking about something. His attention was not on him. And Watson, don't think that you can laugh. In terms of strength, I might not be able to surpass you in this lifetime. However, the knowledge imparted in the Royal Academy is about strength and some other aspects, such as controlling the army and political skills. You can't even catch up with me in those aspects. Is that so? Watson seemed to have heard that sentence and raised his eyebrows. That's right. If you don't believe me, we can make a bet. Generally speaking, the first lesson taught by the various departments in the Royal Academy is not how to cultivate but to understand the current situation of the Holy Dragon Kingdom and the military strength of the other 4 kingdoms surrounding the kingdom. Only by understanding that will one have the motivation to cultivate. Only by understanding the situation of other kingdoms will one have the confidence to fight against those kingdoms in the future. Augustus spoke with assurance. As the young master of the Campbell family, he had learned those things since he was young. That knowledge increased the nobleman's sense of honor toward the kingdom and prepared them for a rainy day. If a battle broke out one day and they did not understand how the other kingdoms worked, that would eventually lead to their downfall. The Royal Academy's purpose was to build talents for the kingdom. They had to make the students understand why knowledge was more important than cultivation itself. Young Master Augustus, what do you plan to bet on? The army has something called war chess. The chess pieces can be used to replace soldiers, and the chessboard can be used to replace the terrain. Both sides control different colored chess pieces to fight on the chessboard. One side will win when their opponent's chess pieces are all taken. Watson, let's use war chess to bet on who will win. If I win, you have to give me those 2 weapons behind me. Augustus told him his plan. Initially, he had wanted Watson's crown and the key to the extensive library. However, one was given by the king, and the other by the principal. He did not want to make the king look bad in front of the principal. After thinking about it, Augustus could only focus on the 2 weapons on Watson's back. Those 2 weapons were made from Watson's 50 holy relics. They possessed a power that was more powerful than the combined power of 50 holy relics. Augustus wanted to use that power to take revenge for Watson's previous actions against him. Young Master Augustus, you want those weapons as your reward, but you haven't told me what you will give me if I win. Watson, do you think you can win? Do you know how to play chess? No, this is the first time I've heard of such a game. Then it's easy. What? I mean, that's such a pity. Augustus looked at Watson's expression when the other youth spoke. He did not think Watson was not lying. Since Watson had played chess before, it should be easy for Augustus to win that match. If Watson had played chess before, Augustus was worried that Watson would play the game too well. Well, I don't want people to think that I'm bullying you. If I lose, I'll give you something equivalent to 2 weapons, which is 100 holy relics. That should be fine with you, right? That's fine. Watson nodded and smiled at the teacher named Blue. Teacher Blue, in order to prevent someone from refusing to pay after they lose, I'll have to trouble you to be a witness. Okay, no problem. Blue's expression was a little strange. He did not expect that Augustus and Watson, the 2 geniuses, would continue to fight on the first day of school. However, it was only war chess. It was a game developed by the ancestors of the Holy Dragon Kingdom's monarch. That game could increase one's intelligence and improve one's skills in the arrangement of troops. It was a famous game around the world upon its release. For the Holy Dragon Kingdom generals or those who had the ambition to become generals, war chess was something that they had to master. Just as Blue was thinking, the youth who had just mocked Watson in front of everyone suddenly said, "HMPH, Watson, you're going to lose for sure. I heard that young Master Augustus' accomplishments in war chess are quite good. Even the kingdom's famous generals can't beat him. If you know what's good for you, you'd better change to another game. Otherwise, young Master Augustus's win will be an unfair one." Augustus glanced at the youth beside him. He noticed that the youth had gray hair and a face full of righteous indignation. He seemed to have seen his face somewhere before, but he could not quite remember. He had spent a lot of effort to lure Watson into taking the bait, allowing Watson to have the idea of competing with him in chess. That youth actually wanted Watson to change to another game? Whose side was he on? That youth had clearly mocked Watson and looked like he did not like Watson very much, but he had done that instead. It was likely that his brain was not working properly. Then, Augustus heard Watson mumble, "I didn't expect Augustus to be so amazing. It looks like I made a mistake. Should I change to another game?" That made him panic. "I do have some accomplishments in war chess, and you don't know war chess. In that case, it would be unfair for you to win even if I won. I'll increase the reward. If you can beat me, I'll give you 300 holy relics. If I beat you, you only need to give me 2 weapons. What do you think?" He wanted Watson to continue with the gamble, so Augustus increased the reward by 3 times. "All right, young Master Augustus, don't go back on your words." Watson nodded, turned around, and followed Teacher Blue to the classroom. It was a vast and spacious coliseum with all kinds of training equipment placed in it. Among the training equipment, there was a huge chessboard, 10 meters square, with hundreds of chess pieces arranged on it. "Watson, Augustus, if you're ready, let's begin the match." Blue stood around the huge chessboard and announced it to Augustus and Watson. Initially, the first lesson was for him to tell the nobleman about the Holy Dragon Kingdom and the surrounding kingdom's combat strength and the soldiers in the other kingdoms. However, that information was widespread knowledge. As a nobleman, he might have known about it since he was young and unwilling to listen to it anymore. As a teacher in the academy, he was reluctant to talk about similar things too many times. It just so happened that Watson had a conflict with Augustus, so he was happy to let the two of them have a war chess match. "Watson, I'll go easy on you. I'll let you go first." Augustus crossed his arms and nodded at Watson. The rules of war chess were very simple. A chess piece would immediately be removed once different colored chess pieces surrounded it. They would have a winner once one side lost all their chess pieces. The rules were straightforward, but it was tough to operate because one's opponent was not a fool. In order to have 4 chess pieces surround a chess piece, they would need at least 4 steps in the early stage. If they left even a single opening, they would not be able to remove the enemy's chess piece successfully. They created such a winning method because when the founder king opened the Holy Dragon Kingdom territory, he used a 4-person encirclement battle formation to do it. It was always successful, 4 against 1. He guaranteed that each of the enemies would face 4 enemies from different directions simultaneously. It made it seem like he had 4 times the strength and was able to kill them quickly. "Since young Master Augustus has said so, then I won't stand on ceremony." Watson laughed and looked at the chessboard in front of him. Then, the knowledge about war chess automatically appeared in his mind. There were many in the memories of the Einherjar body that he had fused with. In addition, in his eyes, that so-called chess was very similar to the Go game that he had known in his previous life. As a result, he did not have confidence in the outcome of that match, as he had just said to Augustus. Watson quietly activated the fusion system in his mind, explicitly fusing all the knowledge about chess in the Einherjar body. In just a moment, his skill level was raised to the peak. Then, he used his combat aura to activate a warrior-like chess piece made of black rocks in the center of the chessboard. That warrior-like chess piece was as tall as an ordinary person. In addition, its body was covered with armor made of rocks, and its weight was dozens of times that of an average person. Therefore, it was a game for people who played war chess to improve their ability to arrange troops and formations and a training device to enhance their combat aura. Seeing Watson place his chess piece in the center, Augustus could not help but smile, and then he burst into laughter. "Watson, It seems like you really don't know how to play war chess. The so-called war chess starts with 4 corners, so the odds of winning are greater. If you place your chess piece in the center, you are waiting to be surrounded by others. Placed in the corner of the chessboard, it would naturally reduce the risk of being surrounded from the outside because the chessboard had a limit. And if one placed one's chess piece in the center, one would face the situation of being besieged on all sides. As he laughed at Watson, Augustus placed his own chess piece in the corner of the chessboard step by step. Then, Watson's second chess piece was placed in the center, and it looked like it was next to the first chess piece. Augustus was not the only one who saw that scene. Even Blue and the other students shook their heads. Even if Watson did not understand the game's rules, after he placed the first chess piece and heard Augustus' hint, he should have understood how ridiculous his action was. It seems that the match will end very soon. Blue shook his head in disappointment. He had hoped that that lesson would become a chess match between Watson and Augustus, and then he would explain the chess match between the two of them. It would be a different teaching, but the explanation would be meaningless if Watson lost too quickly. He thought Watson's loss was just a matter of minutes. The other students, like Blue, were a little disappointed, especially the girls. Women were creatures of fantasy. They had seen Watson's amazing performance at the competition venue, and they had long regarded Watson as an unparalleled genius. In their hearts, Watson could do anything, but they found that Watson was not good at playing chess. That had lowered their expectations, which caused Watson's image in their hearts to drop as well. At that moment, the male student who had taken the lead in ridiculing Watson started to stir the atmosphere again. Everyone, it looks like young Master Augustus and Watson's match will end very soon. Watson will definitely lose. I've said that Watson is useless apart from his strength. In a battle with other kingdoms, personal valor is not very useful. What we really need is an understanding of the troops' arrangement. On that point, young Master Augustus is much stronger than Watson. The bet was meaningless. Now, I want to open a new bet. Let's bet on how many chess pieces young Master Augustus can use to win against Watson. I bet that young Master Augustus can win with another 10 moves. I bet 1,000 gold coins. I'll bet as well. I'll bet that Augustus will win in 50 steps, 100 gold coins. I'll bet that Augustus will win in 100 steps, 500 gold coins. As the male student's voice fell, some people around them could not help but take out 100 gold coins or more and began to bet. Blue turned a blind eye to all of that. Betting was a very normal thing for the students. As long as it did not cause a destructive impact on their studies, no teacher would care about that matter. Watson, don't continue to struggle. Augustus chuckled. He and Watson had already played dozens of chess pieces. Watson's chess pieces were scattered in the outermost corner of the chessboard, forming a huge encirclement net. Watson's chess pieces were only arranged densely in the center of the chessboard. Each chess piece was separated by a grid, looking like a huge piece of beehive coal. No matter who it was, Watson's defeat was already set. Augustus only needed to surround the outside, and then all of Watson's chess pieces on the chessboard would be in danger. No matter how many chess pieces Watson placed, he would only give the other side more spoils of war. However, Watson did not seem to think so. He continued to move the chess pieces in the center of the chessboard and signaled Augustus to continue playing. Watson, since you're courting death, then I won't hold back. Augustus sneered. He had the new bets on their match. He wanted to use the fastest speed to destroy Watson. 3 minutes later, Augustus used the chess pieces to surround the outermost layer of the entire chessboard. He began to place his stones on the penultimate layer of the chessboard. Watson, you've lost. 10 minutes later, the outermost layer of the chessboard was entirely covered by Augustus' chess pieces, while Watson's chess pieces occupied the middle area. The chess pieces from both sides began to collide. Watson, you should admit defeat. 15 minutes later, Augustus looked at everything in front of him in a daze. Cold sweat rolled down his forehead. What happened? The white warrior piece he controlled had more than half of the white warrior pieces on the chessboard shattered. However, none of the black pieces had died. They were spreading in all directions like a virus. He was the one with an advantage. How did his pieces shatter in front of Watson's pieces? At first, he thought that it was because Watson did not know how to play chess and did not know how to connect the pieces to prevent him from surrounding them. However, it seemed like Watson had deliberately left a gap between the pieces. If he dared to place a piece into the gap, Watson could put a piece outside to seal the gap. The passage initially left for Augustus to invade had become a trap. Due to the loss of many white pieces, Watson's black pieces expanded. Then, Watson used the black pieces to gradually fill in the gaps in the pieces on the central chessboard. Finally, only a layer of beehive-like pieces was left. Watson had turned it into an advantage. How did he play that game? Why is it so strange? Quote, I can't believe Augustus is going to lose. Does that mean that those who bet on Augustus will lose money? The students looked at the situation on the chessboard, and their expressions became nervous. DMN it. How did it turn out like that? Watson was clearly a newbie. How did he do it? Why can't I see it? The most nervous person was Augustus. He muttered softly as he watched the situation on the chessboard while his brain worked rapidly. Unfortunately, he could not think of any good ideas. Faced with the attack, Augustus could only wait in a honeycomb formation. If he did not attack, Watson would fill in the chess pieces in the central area. That caused Augustus to be in a dilemma. Finally, half an hour into the match, Augustus watched as the white warrior piece closest to him was surrounded by 4 black pieces. The sharp blade fell and shattered, and he sighed dejectedly. I lost. At first, he chose to occupy the 4 borders of the chessboard. That was not a problem because it could surround Watson's pieces. However, when he was at a disadvantage, the chess pieces at the borders became shackles that bound him. It left him with no way out. Watson, you're lucky this time. You won by luck. Let's play another round. Augustus gritted his teeth. His expression was filled with anger. When he thought of the agreement he had made with Watson just now, his heart was bleeding. 300 holy relics. Where would he get them? If he told the Campbell family about that, they would probably tear him apart. Well, what do you have to pay for it? If I lose again, I'll give you 500 holy relics. Come on, then. Another 20 later, the match ended even faster. Augustus' mouth twitched, and he looked a little lost. I lost. I lost again. How could it be? Young Master Augustus, you owe me 800 holy relics. Do you still want to gamble? Pointing at the black chess pieces on the chessboard in front of him, the corners of Watson's mouth rose, and he looked relaxed. Watson, in each of the 2 games you played, you placed the chess pieces in the middle and then used the space between them to extend outwards, but each time, you were able to defeat your opponent. That is the first time I've seen such a way of playing chess. Who did you learn it from? Quote, Blue reacted. It was not that Watson did not know how to play chess, but he played it very cleverly. He was just being modest. I did not learn from anyone. If I had to say it, I learned from the ancestors. The ancestors? Watson, don't mess around. They have been dead for hundreds of years. Hearing Watson's words, the students of the Royal Academy around them laughed. Watson, on the other hand, looked around with a severe expression. I'm not joking. When the founder king conquered the territory, why did he choose the Holy Dragon Kingdom instead of the other 4 kingdoms? Everyone knows that there are 5 kingdoms globally, and the Holy Dragon Kingdom is in the center. The other 4 kingdoms are eyeing the Holy Dragon Kingdom covetously. Is that a coincidence? Some of you may say that the reason was that the climate here is pleasant and suitable for growing crops. At the same time, natural moats are protecting it in all directions. People from other kingdoms don't dare to invade it easily. It's still different from the chess pieces on the chessboard. What I want to say is that it has nothing to do with the location. Because even if we don't have the founder king, we would still choose this location. That is the so-called survival of the fittest. The combat aura on Watson's body spread out, turning all the chess pieces on the 4 corners of the chessboard into white. The current situation of the Holy Dragon Kingdom is similar to that. The Winter Nation in the north, the Elven Kingdom in the south, the Thorn Empire in the east, and the Dwarf Kingdom in the west. Those 4 kingdoms are just like the rules of war set by the founder king. Once the Holy Dragon Kingdom is surrounded, we will not be able to take care of ourselves and be beheaded by the soldiers. But is that really the case? At least I managed to defeat Augustus when I set the chess piece in the center. Watson's voice was not loud, but the power contained within it was harsh and clear, resounding in everyone's hearts. I believe that the founder king created the chess piece and allowed us to bring it into the Holy Dragon Kingdom. He was thinking about how to break out from the center to defeat the other 4 kingdoms. Instead of going to the other 4 kingdoms and surrounding them from the outside, He wanted us to think of a way to defeat them from the Holy Dragon Kingdom. Well said. So there is such logic behind war chess? I did not know about that before. This is the first time I've heard of such a theory. According to the rules set by the Founder King, what Watson said is very likely to be true. Indeed, we should do it from the Holy Dragon Kingdom and not other kingdoms. Although it's difficult to win by doing so, it's the charm of war chess. The students' discussions could be heard from all around. Everyone admired Watson's logic. They did not have the gloomy look of someone who was about to lose money. They felt like the money spent was worth it. It was equivalent to paying tuition fees. Watson, Augustus really wanted to refute Watson's theory. Unfortunately, he could not say anything. He did not expect that he would lose to Watson in war chess. Was Watson really omnipotent? He also owed Watson 800 holy relics. He could not realize that amount. He had to think of a way to offset that debt. However, he could not think of anything else to win against Watson. Watson, you detestable fellow, you actually won? Although I don't want to admit it, what you said was very reasonable. Because of that, I've lost 1,000 gold coins. However, I believe that young Master Augustus will not give up. Although he is inferior to you in war chess, he may not be inferior to you in other aspects. I heard that young Master Augustus is also very proficient in arithmetic. Do you dare to compete with young Master Augustus in arithmetic? The youth who had taken the lead in slandering Watson began to attack Watson again, and at the same time, he praised Augustus. That's right, Watson. I'm also very good at arithmetic. Let's have a competition. If I win, you can cancel the holy relics that you just won. If I lose, you can have another 100 holy relics. Fine, let's compete. What kind of competition do you have in mind? It's straightforward. Let's each give a question. If anyone can't answer it, that person will lose. Okay, young Master Augustus, let's begin. Watson nodded. Augustus rolled his eyes and cleared his throat. The problem I want you to solve is very simple. I want you to place that chessboard according to the pattern of placing 1 gold coin on the first grid and 2 gold coins on the second grid. Fill each grid in turn. Can you do it? It was a problem that he had accidentally heard in the Campbell family. They said that Lily had encountered that problem from a bank's president. Since she could not answer it in time, Lily had lost the grand prize of 10 million gold coins. When Lily mentioned that matter, the vexed look on her face was still imprinted in Augustus' mind. In his opinion, that question was perfect for making things difficult for Watson. He also heard that Watson was the winner of the 10 million gold coins, and Watson's answer at that time was that he could not do it. Therefore, when Watson answered that he could not do it, he would lose. Augustus felt proud when he thought of how he had set a trap for Watson. Of course, I can do that. Watson chuckled and twisted the wish for the world ring on his finger. Watson, it seems that you can't do it. Wait, what did you say? Augustus widened his eyes in disbelief at Watson's answer. How could Watson do it? While he was in shock, starlight burst from Watson's fingers. A gold coin appeared, followed by a second, and then a fourth. Countless gold coins fell from the sky. The first coin was placed on the first grid, and the second and third coins were placed on the second grid. The entire grid of the chessboard was numbered in the hundreds. The number of gold coins piled up to fill more than half of the circular arena, causing the board to be submerged. Even some students did not have a place to put their feet. He had created so many gold coins in an instant. Am I hallucinating? A student stepped on the gold coins and rubbed his eyes as if he was dreaming. It's not an illusion. Those gold coins are real. Quote. Another warrior student picked up the gold coins on the ground, put one in his mouth, and gently bit it. He knew that it was real. All the students looked at Watson in disbelief. They even began to think of Watson as a god. He had magic that could create gold coins. Did that mean that Watson could be rich even if he did nothing but cast magic every day? Watson, where did you get so many gold coins? Did you make those with magic? Augustus was also a little confused. Why did Watson not play by the rules? Then, he reacted and gritted his teeth. Watson, even though you have a lot of gold coins, who knows if you have filled the entire chessboard according to my requirements? Even though you have produced a lot of gold coins, if you don't do it according to my requirements, you will still lose. Young Master Augustus, you can rest assured. The gold coins that I have summoned are completely enough to fill the chessboard. If you don't believe me, you can count them yourself. If I win, then you will owe me 900 holy relics. Watson smiled, but his words made Augustus' expression change. His meaning was obvious. If Augustus did not believe his answer, he could count it himself. If Augustus could not count it, he had to believe Watson's answer. There are so many gold coins here, at least 1 trillion. With so many gold coins, how long do I need to count them? Augustus thought angrily in his heart. Perhaps he would not even finish counting when Watson and the other students graduated. Since Watson made that request, the exact number of gold coins was no longer important. Watson, you win. I admit defeat. Watson, don't think that you've won just like that. Young Master Augustus is inferior to you in terms of strength, chess, and arithmetic. However, young Master Augustus has another advantage, and that is that he knows everything from the past to the present. As long as it was a book that young Master Augustus had read, he would remember every word, even where the word appeared. Do you dare to bet? Quote. The other young man began to clamor again. He seemed even prouder than Augustus. Young Master Augustus also has other ultimate moves such as sleeping with his eyes open, continuously eating a ton of raw meat that doesn't need to be cooked, persisting for a month without eating or drinking water, and get lost. Who said that I know those things? Get far away from me. Augustus finally could not stand it anymore and roared. It was one thing to sleep with his eyes open, but the young man actually said he could eat a ton of meat. Did he think that he was an elephant? Plus, he said raw meat. Even if he were given a ton of cooked meat, he would not be able to eat it, not to mention not eating or drinking water for a month. Then he would definitely die. In order to complete the bet with Watson, he would end up risking his life. It was not worth it. Young Master Augustus, since you don't want to bet, then please send the 900 saint relics to the Sword Saint's courtyard. I hope you won't go back on your words. Watson's expression was relaxed. He turned around and looked at the gold coins that filled the entire arena. As for those gold coins, I'll have to trouble Teacher Blue to find someone to clean them up. It seems the class can't continue with all these gold coins around. I feel bad that this has affected your class. It's okay, Watson, you don't have to feel bad. Leave those gold coins to me. I just don't know if those gold coins can. The gold coins lit Blue's gaze. So, what do I do with them? He asked hesitantly. You can give them to the Royal Academy. The competition has caused quite a bit of damage to this place. Take a portion of gold coins as my compensation to the Royal Academy. As for the extra money, use it to expand the Royal Academy. Watson, I have to say that you are truly the most outstanding student in the history of the Royal Academy. Principal Brand will definitely praise you. As expected, the principal's decision to hand the library to you was the right arrangement. Only a person like you has the qualifications to control the library. Blue resisted the impulse to jump. Just one lesson, and he had received so much money for nothing. They should praise and reward Watson. A handful of gold coins was more than his annual salary. Teacher, if there is nothing else, please tidy up here. I'll be leaving now. Watson bowed to Blue and turned around to leave. Blue said, don't forget about the potion class in the afternoon. He did not care about Watson's departure at all. After Watson left, many students came to Blue's side with burning eyes. Teacher Blue, do you need help? Let us help you collect those gold coins. Quote, although they were from noble families, they had never seen so many gold coins. Those gold coins were more than all the money they had seen in their lives combined. At that moment, they all looked like country bumpkins. Get out of the way. Watson donated these gold coins to the Royal Academy. Therefore, I will collect them. If you have nothing else to do, go and rest. There are other classes in the afternoon. Blue rejected the students' help. He thought that if he collected the gold coins by himself, no one would notice if he stole some. If there were many people there, how could he steal them? Not everyone in the crowd was interested in those gold coins. Augustus was not interested at all. Instead, he was looking around for the person who had taken the lead to mock Watson. Where's that idiot just now? I must teach him a good lesson. If it weren't for him making a fuss, I would not have lost so miserably. Outside the circular arena, Watson was strolling toward the direction of the great library. Other than scamming Augustus, the lesson was not of much help to him. On the contrary, he was very interested in the potion class in the afternoon. Since he had absorbed the god of poison's power, the blood in his body could be made into various types of potions, and potions had a massive market in the capital. If a soldier were injured and did not receive timely treatment from a healer, he would need potions to recover. Before a battle, a soldier would also need to drink potions to increase his strength temporarily. There were even some potions that had special effects. For example, they could make a person invisible or resist the attacks of natural disasters such as water, fire, and lightning for a short period. Their use was extensive. At that moment, the Severed Fingers gang monopolized the alcohol and weapons trades. Only the potions trade had not been touched yet. Watson decided to use his blood to create powerful potions. After systematically learning about potions, he would seize the kingdom's market and make a huge profit. If he wanted to obtain knowledge related to the potions trade, instead of attending classes, he might as well go directly to the great library and fuse all the knowledge there. Just as Watson thought about that, he heard footsteps from behind him, followed by a certain someone's respectful voice. "It looks like young Master Augustus, who spoke rudely to you just now, is now heavily in debt. I reckon that in the future, he will be circling you for a very long time. Also, this is the money that everyone lost in the bet just now. It's a total of 50,000 gold coins. Amen, you did well. Well, are there any students that hate me so much that we need to investigate them?" Watson turned his head and looked at the gray-haired youth in front of him, who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old, and smiled. The boy in front of him was Amon, one of the Severed Fingers gang members. It was only an act when he mocked Watson. His goal was to find out if anyone in the warrior department was dissatisfied with him. If anyone were, then Watson would find those people and punish them to avoid affecting his subsequent talent recruitment plan. Other than Augustus, the rest of the students seem to respect you very much. Of course, we can't rule out the possibility that someone is hiding something profound. We still need to investigate further. Then investigate that. There's no rush. The 50,000 gold coins will be your reward for the success of this operation, Amon. The smile on Watson's face grew wider. I'm going to the library next, but it's really dull for me to go alone. Do you want to come with me? Of course, young Master Watson. It's my honor. Amon was excited and happy when Watson rewarded him with gold coins and even asked for his company. Chapter 433. Fusing the God of Knowledge's Book of Wisdom. The Great Library was located in the center of the Royal Academy. The entire library was a spiral-shaped tower that pierced through the clouds. There were no windows on top of it, and the only thing that was exposed was a large door at the bottom. The large door was filled with an intense magical aura. It was as if thousands of different types of enchantments had been constructed using different types of magic. Even diamond-tier experts would not be able to destroy it in a short period. Furthermore, once it was forcefully destroyed, the books in the library would be automatically destroyed. Standing in front of the library, Watson sighed at the grandeur of the library. He took out the golden key from his neck and inserted it into the door in front of him. With the sound of a machine expanding, the many magical enchantments in front of Watson slowly squirmed and formed a translucent door in the air. Watson and Amon followed the translucent door into the library. As soon as they entered, Amon could not help but exclaim, "So, this is what the library is like." The interior of the library looked completely different from the outside. The air was filled with water, but it did not feel suffocating at all. Streams emerged from the library's depths. Those water streams seemed to have the effect of nourishing books. The spiral-shaped stairs around them were piled on both sides with shelves filled with all kinds of books. Many of them were clearly over 100 years old, but they still would not decay. Above the water streams, sky-blue whales slowly glided by, emitting a deep and pleasant sound. It made people sink into the beautiful sound and relax their bodies and minds. There was no one in the entire library except for Watson and Amon, making it seem empty and lonely. As expected of the library that the kingdom has expanded for hundreds of years. The number of books in it is almost uncountable with the naked eye. There are as many as the stars in the sky. I think many people in the kingdom would not be able to finish reading even if they spent their entire lives here. Watson looked at the books around him and sighed. For others, they might not be able to finish reading the books in their entire lives, but it was not the case for him. Young Master Watson, which book should we start with? Amon rubbed his fists and asked Watson excitedly. He was not a person who liked to learn, but seeing so many books, he could not help but be stimulated to learn. Furthermore, as Watson's subordinate, he had to fill himself up to help Watson constantly. "We don't need to read the books here." "Don't need to? What do you mean?" Eamon did not understand. Why did Watson go to the great library if not to read? "What I mean is that those books seem too laborious. It's better to read them all in one go." Watson chuckled and raised his right hand. He aimed at all the books in the library and said, "Fusion system, activate." The entire library shook. The books that were as numerous as the stars in the sky also trembled. They turned into streams of light and converged in the air. Among those books, there were ordinary books that carried stories. Some books recorded magic or fighting techniques. Some of them were even of gold-tier quality. The result of the fusion between those books was unpredictable. "Congratulations, Master, on merging a large number of books. You have obtained the God of Knowledge's Book of Wisdom, a peak starlight tier tool." With the sound of the system notification, all the glowing books in front of Watson disappeared. In their place was a book. It had a gold cover and a silver chain between the covers. Its surface was covered with mysterious symbols. The book floated in midair for a while before landing in Watson's hand. The chain around the book broke with a click, and the book began to flip, revealing a series of strange glowing words. It seemed to be a language system that was even older than the Loan language. Watson could not understand those words, but he could understand their meaning. The moment those words appeared, bright illusions suddenly burst forth from them. Those illusions included the sun, the moon, the stars, and the battle between the winged angels and the blood-soaked demons. The scenes and experiences were all very immersive. Only Eamon, a platinum-tier elite, was trembling because of the strange phenomenon that appeared in the book. Watson noticed that and quickly closed the book. Specific information appeared in his eyes. Starlight Tier Peak Holy Relic. God of Knowledge's Book of Wisdom. Effects. Omniscience. Everything that happens in the world or recorded in the book is recorded in it. As long as you ask, you will get the answer you want. Omnipercipience. Everything you want to know can be presented in the form of true history in the book. Additional abilities. Knowledge and Wisdom Kingdom. A kingdom made up of books. The host can freely change the settings of the books in the kingdom. True creation. The creature in the book is projected into the real world and has full memories and abilities from when it was alive. The number of summons is linked to the host's strength, and it is immune to physical damage. As expected of the kingdom's great library, all the books combined gave me an additional peak starlight tier item. This book might not be as powerful as the other two tools in terms of attack, but it has greater use in certain areas. Watson held the Book of Wisdom in his hand and revealed an expression of extreme joy. For example, in terms of information acquisition, that book had an irreplaceable use. The reason gods were powerful was because they had a better understanding of the rules between heaven and earth. The more they understood the nature of power, the more invincible they would be. Therefore, it was not an exaggeration to call the gods omniscient and omnipotent. Even if Watson had not mastered omniscience, it was at least equivalent to mastering half of the god's abilities. Let's try the book's omniscience ability. Let's see if it really knows everything. Watson could not help but ask in his heart, "I want to know what King Landhar III is doing at the moment. Let me see it in an omniscient way." "Can you do it?" The book in front of him suddenly made a sound. An illusory shadow appeared in front of him. It was King Landhar III's bedroom, which Watson had been to before. It looked very familiar. King Landhar III was standing in front of the desk in the bedroom. He seemed to be sizing something up. "I can really see it." Unfortunately, he could only see an illusory scene. He could not hear what King Landhar III was saying. That was because the Book of Wisdom only had vision, not sound. However, seeing was enough for Watson. Book of Wisdom. Zoom in on where King Landhar III is. Let me see what he is doing right now. Following his command, the Book of Wisdom zoomed in, and Watson saw an indescribable scene. There was a magical array carved with scarlet paint, and there seemed to be a person lying on it. At a certain moment, King Landhar III turned his body, and Watson finally saw who was on the magical array. There were 3 people lying on the ground, and Watson was familiar with all of them. They were the 3 contestants from the Winter Nation who had gone to the capital to participate in the competition. They were Ash, Harold, and Douglas. At that moment, the three contestants were lying on the ground silently. A sticky, squirming black sphere sealed their mouths. They seemed to be dead. Meanwhile, King Landhar III circled the three people. His palm was placed on his chin, and he kept stroking it. His brows were furrowed as if he had encountered a complex problem. The scene came to an abrupt stop. Watson was panting and breaking out in cold sweat. Besides him, Amon's expression was also unsightly. "Young Master Watson, what's going on? That's the king just now, right? What is he doing? Why are the three people from the Winter Nation appearing by his side?" It's rumored that they had left the capital with their envoys. The magical array beneath the king's feet also looks very evil. Could there be a conspiracy behind all of that? You might be right, but why did the king kill them secretly and leave their corpses behind? It seems like I need to summon their projections to ask them about it. Watson's eyes narrowed. Fortunately, he had fused with the Peak Starlight Tier tool after going to the library. Otherwise, he might not have known that the king was plotting behind the scenes. After making up his mind, Watson injected energy into the Book of Wisdom. The book immediately flipped open, and soon, a large number of words lit up. The figures of Ash, Douglas, and Harold changed from illusory to real when they appeared in the library. Their bodies were almost no different from reality. When they first appeared, they looked back nervously, as if someone was chasing after them. Harold gritted his teeth and said, "Princess, Douglas, you have to leave quickly. You must stop the conspiracy. The destruction of the Dragonspine Snow Mountain was a trap set by the Holy Dragon Kingdom. They wanted the Winter Nation to send troops to attack them. I can't do it anymore. You have to tell them this news." "Harold, I'll stay with you." "One messenger is enough," Douglas said. "No, you two go. I'll stay. Your strength is not enough to fight against the Holy Dragon Kingdom's assassins. I can delay them until you leave the capital. They have killed our envoys. Don't let them die for nothing." Ash did not listen to the other two. Instead, she shouted anxiously. She raised her hand and was about to use her combat aura to tie up Harold and Douglas before throwing them out. At that moment, she realized that something was wrong. She was in a location that was neither in the capital nor her memories. It looked quite unfamiliar. Even the people who were chasing after them had disappeared. Ash saw Watson and Eamon in front of her. She revealed an expression of disbelief. "Watson, why are you here? And where is here?" "This is the Royal Academy's great library, the gathering place of all the knowledge in the Holy Dragon Kingdom. As for why you are here, it's because I used the power of that Book of Wisdom to summon your projections when you were alive." "I see. I remember now. We're already dead." Ash closed her eyes and sank into her memories. Suddenly, her expression became a little melancholic. "Watson, what's the point of summoning us now? We're already dead. Don't tell me you're planning to extract information about the Winter Nation from us. I advise you to give up. We won't say a word." Douglas pushed up his monocle fiercely. It was as if he was venting his anger on Watson. "You don't have to worry. I'm not in cahoots with the king who killed you. And you'll definitely tell me what I want to know." Watson waved the book in his hand. Douglas still wanted to refute, but his mouth was sealed by an invisible force, making it impossible for him to retort. "Watson, regardless of whether you were with King Landhar III or not, you went to great lengths to summon us when we were alive. Just tell us what you want to ask," Harold said in a low voice. "Anyway, we were unable to resist your power when we were alive, let alone after we died." Watson nodded and asked, "I want to ask you what you experienced before your death, why King Landhar III killed you, and what was his plan." "Watson, that's what you want to know?" Ash had a mocking expression on her face. "Then let's talk about it bit by bit. First of all, before we died, we saw no less than 50 assassins sent by the king. Those assassins were at least peak gold tier, and their methods were even more terrifying. Some people poisoned us, and some dug large pits on the road we were about to pass. The pits were filled with sharp blades made of anti-magic materials. Even if I were a diamond tier elite, I still would not be able to escape it. The two envoys who escorted us died because of that. As for the king's plan, I only found out about it after he captured us. Before I tell you, Watson, I have to remind you that your king is at the peak of the diamond tier. He might not be weak compared to you. I've always heard that the strongest person in the Holy Dragon Kingdom is Sword Saint Reed, but now it seems it should be your king instead." Watson could not help but frown. Are you sure? He had thought about that. With the help of the 7 gods, King Landhar III might not be as weak as the rumors said, but he also did not expect him to be so powerful. He had such powerful strength, but he pretended to be an ordinary person. He was too cunning. I can see the contours of all the energy in the world. For that, I can't see the colors that ordinary people can see, so I am not mistaken. Not only does he possess the strength of a peak diamond tier elite, but his body also contains something even more evil. Compared to the strength that you and Augustus displayed in the competition, it's even more terrifying. Let's not talk about that for now. Let's talk about King Landhar III's plan. Watson did not signal for Ash to continue. He was stronger than Watson and Augustus. That must be the power of a true god, like Nia. It was not strange that King Landhar III, who had made a deal with the 7 gods, had such a level of power in his body. Hearing that, he had already vaguely guessed that Ash and the other 2 had died in the royal city. It was probably related to the gods that King Landhar III served, and his questions confirmed that point. 10 minutes later, Watson put their projections back into the book. So that is King Landhar III's plan? It's really creepy. Watson stared at the barren ground and could not help but shiver. Ash had that information because she had used her special eyes to see through King Landhar III's strength. The man also revealed some information to them as they were about to die. However, it was not comprehensive. Even so, Watson still felt fear. He even had an impulse to use the Book of Wisdom to ask for the king's complete plan. However, after thinking about it, he suppressed it. Even though the Book of Wisdom was at a peak starlight tier item, he knew he should not provoke those 7 gods. If he summoned King Landhar III's projection and duplicated the divine power in his body, what would happen if he attracted the 7 gods' attention? Young Master Watson, I always thought that the king was not a good person. Now it seems that is true. He held the competition to destroy the Winter Nation and get you, young Master Watson. In the final step of his plan, he might even sacrifice his 3 sons and daughter. There is an old saying in the Holy Dragon Kingdom, a vicious tiger will not eat its own son. At that moment, his actions are even more cruel than a ferocious beast. Eamon, who had also heard Watson's question, could not help but tremble. He was a platinum tier elite assassin. His ability to withstand pressure was very strong, but he still could not bear it. It was clear that the king's plan had brought him a powerful impact. Since ancient times, the cruelty of kings, or rather, the cruelty of humans, has surpassed that of animals. Watson said, now that we know a part of King Landhar III's plan, we need to take back the capital. From now on, let King Landhar III continue to follow his plan. Eamon, you have to pretend that you don't know anything, understand? But young Master Watson, there are no buts. Just listen to me. All right. Even though he was still worried, Eamon accepted Watson's firm order. It's already noon. Let's call Christina and have a meal with my friends from the other departments. We can also see if there are any geniuses worth roping in. Watson smiled and waved the Book of Wisdom in his hand. Books immediately appeared on the shelves in the library that had been emptied. Those books were replicas of those he had fused into the Book of Wisdom. They were no different from the previous books. Even the principal, who should be very familiar with those books, would not be able to tell the difference. He only needed to use 1/10 of this strength to maintain those books. Chapter 434. Recruiting Geniuses. At the Imperial Palace, the king's bedroom. King Landhar III paced around the palace, staring at the 3 corpses on the ground. From left to right, they were Harold, Ash, and Douglas. He looked at the bodies that were alive a few days ago. At that point, they had black wriggling liquid in their mouths, and they were gradually transforming into an inhuman domain. King Landhar III's eyes did not have a trace of pity in them. Instead, there was a burning flame one might call ambition. According to the method that the gods taught me, these 3 corpses will be completely transformed in a few minutes. When that time comes, 3 gods will descend. It's great that the Winter Nation sent a genius to participate in the competition. We'll just have to search for a few more geniuses in the kingdom. It's a pity that other kingdoms did not send anyone to participate in the competition. Otherwise, I might be able to complete the process this time. It was not a simple matter to let the gods descend. First, one had to prepare a host that could contain the power of the gods. The higher the talent, the better. The more talented a person was, the better they would be able to adapt to the power of the gods that surpassed the level of their bodies. The gods' power would not shatter their bodies. Once such an outcome occurred, the true body of the gods would be exposed to the mortal world and would be punished. That was something that no one wanted to see. At the same time, if they wanted to descend, they had to remove the energy and body structure that initially existed in the corpses. They had to transform into godly bodies that could adapt to different gods. At that moment, they were wriggling in the mouths of the three corpses. The black liquid that was constantly devouring the surface of the corpses was something that the gods used for their intended bodies. It was similar to the gods' remains that King Landhar III had given to Samuel, only more advanced. When the gods' remains fuse with the corpse, a unique power is used to avoid the surveillance of the rules. Then, the gods can draw their power completely. Even though that method is only temporary, it is faster and more efficient than a method similar to the reincarnation of the child of God. If the body is damaged, the god can leave it early and wait for the body to be changed before descending again. The most important thing is, as King Landhar III muttered to himself, the corner of his mouth suddenly curved into a strange arc. I can also use that method to change my body and achieve a different kind of eternal life. As a king who had been in power for decades, he was already ancient. Although he did not appear old due to his mighty strength, he would die over a long period. That was something that every king could not accept, and he saw a glimmer of hope in the method that the gods had given him. As long as he waited for the gods to descend, he would be able to complete his plan. Everything was under his control. Buzz. While he was thinking, a few minutes passed. The black liquid squirming on the three corpses on the ground suddenly increased its speed. It expanded and turned into a huge shell similar to a cicada chrysalis. After wrapping the three corpses, the three shells cracked. The fingers on the corpses moved, and they sat up silently, even opening their eyes. Their eyes were pure black, and there seemed to be some kind of black substance surging inside. However, a small pupil the size of a green bean was in the center, each of which differed in color. Harold's pupils were green. After he got up, the hair on his body swayed, turning from black to white, and finally to silver green. It emitted a divine light and was surrounded by a whistling tornado. Harold raised his hand and pushed the hair on his head back. He used the tornado to form a hairband to bound his hair. Harold revealed his handsome face and smiled. After using God's remains to improve that giant's body, I have awakened the bloodline of the ancient storm giant, a diamond-tier creature. Not only does it have innate divine power, but it can also control storms. It just happens to be suitable for me, Agaras, god of wind and navigation. At that moment, Harold was no longer Harold, but one of the 7 gods, Agaras. Anyway, as long as we kill everyone, there will be no problem. Douglas stood up and raised his hand to touch the monocle on his right eye. Then, he looked down at his slender arm and frowned. As a god of war, it is not appropriate to assign me such a thin and weak body. If possible, I would like to switch with Agaras. Transforming into a giant and fighting with brute force is more in line with my characteristics. Ares, stop complaining. This time, we have 6 gods descending to the mortal world. We are the first 3 who have won by drawing lots. The remaining gods still have to wait for King Landhar III to prepare bodies for them. Furthermore, Douglas is not a weak one. That mortal youth possesses many archery skills, which aligns with your identity as the god of war. Of course, Sidi, the goddess of shadows and potions, occupies the best body. Ash, who was in the middle, had pure black eyes. As she surveyed her surroundings, a satisfied smile appeared on her delicate face. That scene caused the other 2 gods to curl their lips and not say anything. Among the 3 corpses, Ash was the strongest. As Ash was a female, her body was suitable for Sidi, who was a female. Hence, Agaras and Ares stepped aside. My lords, I have been waiting for you for a long time. It seems like you are very satisfied with these 3 bodies. However, I would like to see how much power you can unleash and whether you are qualified for my next plan. King Landhar III had been silent ever since the 3 corpses sat up. He only spoke after the gods had gotten used to their bodies. Mortal King, how do you want to test our strength? Ares, the god of war, who had taken over Douglas's body, looked calmly at King Landhar III. The king raised his eyebrows slightly. It's very simple. In order to prepare the bodies, the geniuses and envoys from the Winter Nation had to die in the capital. The Winter Nation will not let that matter rest. They might even start a war with us. For the sake of insurance, the Holy Dragon Kingdom should make the first move. Please make the Winter Nation lose its fighting strength, albeit temporarily. I will be satisfied as long as you can do that. It's that simple? As Ares' voice fell, he stretched his fist and hammered the space to his right. Immediately, a huge gap appeared in the space. Then, Ares took out a divine bow from the void. It was as tall as a person. The entire bow seemed to be forged from fresh blood. Occasionally, the faces of the dead would appear on it. The moment they appeared, the whole palace would be covered with the aura of death. Holding the bloody longbow, Ares bent the bow toward the spatial gap. Immediately, blood-red arrows appeared on the bowstring. He shot them toward the spatial gap. Boom! With a muffled sound, the blood-red arrows disappeared, and the spatial gap disappeared as well. At that moment, Sidi, who had taken over Ash's body, waved her hand. The shadows on the ground squirmed and rose, turning into a huge shadow curtain. Behind it was a kingdom located on a cold plateau, with snow-white walls made of ice. At that moment, a huge hole appeared above the kingdom. Countless blood-red arrows rained from the sky, falling into the city. Those who were hit by the arrows immediately turned into blood. Their eyes also turned red. All the blood vessels in their bodies bulged. They had lost their rationality and killed everyone they saw. For a moment, more than half of the kingdom fell into chaos. Mortal King, are you satisfied with the power that I have displayed? Ares did not even look at the content of the image that Sidi had displayed. Instead, he asked in a domineering voice that was utterly different from his appearance. The kingdom that Sidi had shown was the Winter Nation. At that moment, it was being invaded by Ares' power. As expected of a god that rules over war and hunting. That ability caused the people in the Winter Nation to fall into madness and kill each other. There is no doubt that it is the power of a true god. I am very satisfied with it. King Landhar III nodded. Since you are satisfied, tell us the location of that young man named Watson. I want to hack him into pieces. A brutal killing intent flashed across Ares' pitch-black eyes. He rubbed his hands together. As gods, the only purpose of their descent was to kill Watson. Lord Ares, 6 gods are participating in the mission to destroy Watson. There are still 3 who have yet to arrive. Isn't it unfair for you to make the first move? It's their bad luck that they did not draw the best lot. If we come earlier, we can act earlier. What's wrong with that? Can you blame their bad luck on me? My patience is limited. Let me ask you one more time, where is Watson? Ares' eyes narrowed into slits. White clouds began to spew out of his mouth and nose. Only a god could produce that effect due to the excessive airflow when he was gasping for breath. Only a god could breathe clouds. If I'm not wrong, Watson is currently at the Royal Academy. Before King Landhar III could finish his sentence, Ares had already dashed forward, turning into a ray of light and disappearing from the spot. That Ares is too impatient. No matter how fast he is, can he be faster than me, the god of wind and navigation? Watson and the power in his body will belong to me. Agaras, who had also taken over Harold's body, also flew away. His body turned into a gust of wind mixed with lightning, and his speed was even faster than Ares. In an instant, only Sidi remained. Lord Sidi, aren't you going as well? It would be bad if those 2 get ahead of us. There's no rush. I've fought with Watson before, and I know how difficult he can be. If it were that easy, I would not have lost a clone. I'll let Ares and Agaras go. When they've used up their energy with Watson, I'll be able to capture Watson easily. The corners of Sidi's lips curled upward as she controlled Ash's corpse. A smug look appeared on her face. King Landhar III, who was at the side, smiled and did not say anything. Sidi's idea was not bad, but could the actual situation allow her to get what she wanted? At the dining hall in the Royal Academy. The Royal Academy's dining hall is quite luxurious, and the food tastes good. It doesn't feel any worse than the Holy Dragon Tavern. Most importantly, it has the sun and moon fruit wine. Lily sat on a bench, stuffing meat into her mouth as she gulped down the wine. Charlotte, who was sitting next to her, felt a little helpless. Lily, everyone is watching you. Can you be a little more reserved when you're eating? Otherwise, I would be embarrassed to sit with you. As Charlotte spoke, Lily looked up and realized that many people in the restaurant were looking at them, indeed. To be precise, they were looking at Watson, who was sitting opposite her. Kiana sat to his left, and Nia was on his right. One of the two girls was holding a bowl and stirring the thick soup with a spoon. She stirred and blew at it while the other used a fork to a piece of steak to Watson. I've already used my ability to lower the temperature. Please enjoy that Holy Dragon Kingdom sweet soup, Master. Don't bother about her, Watson. I am here to feed you. If you're not satisfied with this method, I can feed you with my lips. Many students from the Royal Academy saw that scene. The male and female students looked envious, but the former group was jealous of Watson, while the latter group was envious of Kiana and Nia. Your Highness, Miss Nia, this is the Royal Academy, a public place. Please be wary of your actions. If you continue to act like this, I won't eat with you in the future. Watson complained helplessly. In the end, he simply ate the steak and drank a mouthful of soup. He knew that Kiana and Nia would stick to him and continue to bother him if he did not do that. I envy young Master Watson to have both the princess and Nia to fuss over him at the same time, Eamon, who was sitting not far from Watson, whispered. Watson heard him, and he stared at Eamon. Envy? Come, Eamon, let's change seats. No, young Master Watson, I was just joking. I can sit here. After Watson finished his food, Kiana and Nia started preparing a new portion of food for him. One of them was grabbing Watson's jaw while the other was stuffing food into his mouth. Eamon could not help but shiver. Eamon, if you have time to talk about useless things, why don't you hurry up and eat? If you don't want to eat, then go and look for geniuses. You've been in the Royal Academy for a long time. You should know that already, right? Young Master Watson, regarding the geniuses in the Royal Academy, I already have a few candidates. Eamon nodded. He pointed to a girl with a long scarf around her in one of the dining hall corners. The girl looked ordinary, and she kept looking around her as she ate. When someone passed by her, she would eat quickly, as if she was a little hamster who was afraid of being noticed. That girl's name is Rose Weiser. She's a member of the Abador family, a famous potion family in the kingdom. She's very talented at making potions. She's only in her teens this year, and she can already produce peak gold tier potions by herself. That person over there is the young master of a duke's family in the kingdom, known as the Duke Piggy. Eamon pointed in another direction. The person he pointed at was as big as a small hill, more than 10 times the size of an ordinary person. The fat on his stomach piled on the bench, and that hill-like youth was pouring food into his mouth. It did not look like he was eating, but rather, it looked like he was vacuuming trash. Duke Piggy can convert what he eats into power. For example, if he eats a cow, then he can grow horns. If he eats a bird, then he can grow wings. He can even combine the abilities of different foods. And that woman over there, they say that she is the illegitimate daughter of a sea folk woman and a nobleman. Initially, she did not qualify to study at the Royal Academy. But she has the combined characteristics of humans and the sea race. She has a natural ability to charm and a distinctive singing voice. They say that even animals will stop when they hear her singing. Eamon introduced a few geniuses to Watson. Those geniuses might not be powerful in combat power, but they all had some strange abilities. Therefore, they were not very well known in the competition. However, Eamon understood that Watson did not need strong talents but those with unique skills. Not bad, Eamon. Later, you can ask those geniuses if they are interested in becoming my subordinates. Watson looked interested as he waved his hand at Eamon. Strength was nothing to him. The most important thing was the characteristics. After all, he had many ways to increase one's strength, but one's unique abilities had to be different. For example, the girl named Rose Weiser could make high-tier potions, and the man named Duke Piggy could use his body to mix the food he ate and improve it to increase production. Forget it, Eamon. I'll ask them myself. After thinking for a while, Watson stood up before Eamon did. On the one hand, he thought it might be disrespectful to ask Eamon to do that, and on the other hand, he wanted to get away from Kiana and Nia, who had been trying to feed him. Watson went to the corner of the hall first. The ordinary-looking girl in a thick scarf was in front of him. Miss Rose Weiser, right? Is it convenient to talk? You're Warren, Watson? Wow. Rose did not expect Watson to appear in front of her suddenly. She dropped the knife and fork in her hand and suddenly jumped up from her seat with a scream. Her scream attracted everyone's attention. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Watson put his hand on his shoulder and bowed to her. "I'm sorry, Miss Rose. I have startled you, and for that, I apologize. I'm here to make a deal with you. I'm interested in making potions. I want to make a batch and sell it on the market." As a member of the Abador family, Miss Rose must be very familiar with those things. "Can you help me?" Rose tugged at the corner of her clothes. She did not respond, but Watson waited patiently without urging her. Just as many people in the dining hall were waiting for Rose's answer, there was a bang. A man with silver hair wrapped around his body walked into the hall. Then, another tall man trailed behind him. His aura was like a storm that swept through the sky, and it did not stop at all. After the man came in, his eyes locked onto Watson, and a cruel smile appeared on his face. "Watson, I've finally found you. I'll take your life now." The man extended his thick hand toward Watson. A sharp wind blade was wrapped around his palm as if he wanted to cut Watson and the entire restaurant in half. Rose Weiser, who was in between that man and Watson, was the first to bear the brunt of the wind blade. However, before the wind blade reached her, the long scarf around her neck had already been cut into two, leaving a shallow bloodied scar on her skin.